Hello, I'm Bjorn, and welcome back to the raft. You know what that means. We're doing Thunderbolts 2. I didn't announce that I was doing this. I made no plans of doing this outside of my Discord, where I mentioned it a couple times, that it was something I was working on. I definitely didn't tell people I was going to be putting it out this weekend. So, it's done, mostly. The script is plotted out, and I have it ready to go. So you might be asking, wait, Bjorn, you didn't finish a previous project. Why are you starting this one? Yeah, the Harry Potter one, the final act, it needs some time in the oven. I'm trying to make sure I get it right. So I was like, okay, I'm going to let this sit for like a month and just like really figure out how I want to do the ending. Because the original ending I had in mind, I think I've thought of something better that works within the constraints of the story better. So I'm just going to let that breathe for a second, and we're going to see what comes of that. And so in the meantime, I was like, well, I'm down to one series, which I've honestly almost finished. I already have the next episode ready to go. So I was like, I'll just start a new one that I have ready. So we're doing Thunderbolts Part 2. So for those who haven't watched the last one, this is going to be a sequel. There will be spoilers in the characters I mentioned being involved here, obviously. So if you want to go back and watch the previous one, here's the link to the full series in the annotations. Go ahead and check that out if you want. If not, I mean, you do you. I have no power over you. I'm just a guy on the internet making a video. So without further ado, let's get into our characters. We're into these relatively quickly. We've got our returning characters, of course, U.S. Agent John Walker, maybe my favorite current character in the MCU, who I used in my last movie as the leader of the Thunderbolts. Probably, likely, hopefully, how he will be used in the MCU movie. Remains to be seen if that will actually be the case, but who can say? And then I've also got his war friend and now superhuman, Dallas Riordan. Hello, Asher. Thank you for joining the video. Dog interruption. Dallas Riordan, of course, got superpowers at the end of that last movie after taking a small little injury to the chest. So it'll be interesting to see what we do with her. Of course, she will be working on becoming her superhero counterpart in the comic book, but I won't spoil that here. Y'all can be surprised by that along with everyone else. We've got Ghost from the horrible Ant-Man and the Wasp, who has the ability to phase. This movie will see her plot involving her split personality devolving a little further. We're going to focus in on that a lot and give her some good characterization. She will be one of the characters that I decide to give some more focus to. We've got Songbird returning, of course, and Speed Demon unchanged. They haven't honestly changed much in the 3 or 4 months since the previous movie that this movie will be taking place. Obviously, we lost a couple members in the last movie. We lost Zemo and we lost Bullseye. So we did need some replacement members. So who are our replacement members? I know there's probably some rampant speculation about who I'm going to choose. And of course, I'm going to use Atlas. Look, I like Atlas. He's in the original run. I'm not going to discuss too much about how I'm using him because he doesn't come into the script until near the second half. So to mention how he's involved would be a spoiler to the actual plot of the movie. So I will instead briefly talk about what I've done to his powers. Because in the comic books, Atlas is just a strong guy. Like, he's really strong, right? He's not much different from, John Walker or now Dallas Riordan, just like a super strong guy. And I was like, we could really use something a little more unique. And I was trying to figure out how I could take the strong guy angle and rework his powers to make him stand out amongst the other Thunderbolts. And I settled on his other name, which is Goliath, he's sometimes called. And I was like, hey, let's take that name and use it. So I'll say that he's able to increase his size in varying muscle classes. He can get bigger and bigger and bigger. Not like Ant-Man big. I'm talking like he can add a couple feet to his height. And every time he does, he gets increasingly stronger or increasingly quick. So the smaller he is, he's still pretty strong, but he's fast. Maybe not as fast as Speed Demon, but quick, agile. But the larger he gets, the slower he becomes and the stronger he gets. So he's constantly shrinking and growing in battle to try to increase his strength or speed wherever needed. That makes him a little more dynamic, makes him a little more interesting, and it fits the overall character design and theme a little better. I won't get into his origin story because honestly we're not going to talk about it much in the movie. He's just going to appear as Atlas, already having been around the block. I think that's the simplest way to do it. He's a fairly easy character to understand, so there's no need for a complex backstory for him like someone like, let's say, Speed Demon needs. Alright. Our next character, the next character I'm going to use is another alumni of the original Thunderbolts, who will also be appearing in the second half of this movie alongside Atlas, and that is Mach X, who is a sort of Iron Man-esque villain. He is a super genius engineer who has created a tech suit for himself which he has used to commit a series of robberies among other crimes. It works more like a glider suit, like it has wings, something more akin to Vulture than Iron Man, but less Vulture-y. I think you've seen this character's design in the original Thunderbolts. I probably won't change it too much, keep him sort of the same. Much like Atlas, I'm not going to go too far into his backstory or his purpose in the script. I'm going to leave most of that ambiguous for now, so that you guys can be surprised by it. Now, these characters appear in the second half of the movie, so you might be asking, well, Bjorn, are you going to keep like just 4 or 5 members of the team in the beginning? Well, there is one more character I failed to mention, the one I'm easily the most excited to talk about. I mentioned in a Discord post, in Bjorn Does Movies Discord, you can join below if you want to get little hints or teasers, that I was working with some legacy characters that people knew, and one character that I was going to completely redesign, like I did with something like Flatline or Chemo. Take the maybe aesthetic or basic idea of the character, and then change where they are, i.e. like what team they're on, and their whole personality and backstory, to make them fit better in the narrative I want to tell, while keeping the core of the character the same. So the character I lasered in on was one with a power that I have been mildly obsessed with for years. That power, insect control, and the character, Queen. This is I guess a Spider-Man villain. I couldn't really peg where she's actually a villain, and I'm not really too big of a fan of the comic book counterpart to this character. They've kind of got like that weird power creep thing going on, where what starts as the ability to control insects, already an immensely strong ability, as you will no doubt see in my script, sort of snowballs into now she can control Spider-Men, or anyone with insect DNA at all, which is just, it's frankly, it's stupid. I'm going to say it straight up, it's really dumb. I don't really care for that, nor does the character really jump out at me as something interesting. I don't read the description of the origin and the idea of the character outside of the power and go, this character grips me. I want to understand what this character's thing is. So how am I going to change Queen? Pretty straightforward. Her origin story will tie directly into the theme of my movie, which is dark. So briefly, before I talk about what I'm doing with Queen, let me talk about the plot of this movie. I will be calling it Thunderbolts Legacy of Power. Cool name, I know, but as the name implies, it focuses on the legacy in the aftermath of the death of the power broker. Now you might be thinking, well, Bjorn, who's your villain going to be? It's a secret. It could be anybody. The villain for the sequel could be anybody. It could even be the same as the villain for the first movie. That would be insane, right? You'll just have to wait and see when I talk about the villains. But the movie will narrowly focus in on one specific real-world problem I want to talk about, and it's a very dark topic. You don't see brought up like ever in superhero movies. Very rarely is it brought up in comic books, so I figured, hey, I want to take a crack at it. That's human trafficking. I don't even know if I'm allowed to say that on YouTube, so we're going to have to play this by ear. But if this gets demonetized or I feel like it's getting shut down, I'll just add a censor bar and put the words on the screen. But, it's a very big issue. It's one that you see talked about from time to time, but isn't really talked about because it's not really something that's flattering to bring up. Much like a lot of real-world issues, it's not fun or engaging to learn about. It's sad. But it also is something that can lead to some very interesting origin stories for characters. What happens to the sort of people forced to live through that circumstance? And it's rough a lot of the time. I've done some actual research into how this works, and it will be factored into the script. I had already kind of set this plot thread up in the last movie purposely because I had already planned this movie when I wrote that first one. You'll pick that up pretty quickly as you're watching through it. So, Queen is another one of the power broker's little experiments. Unlike most of her previous experiments, she was never able to get Queen to join her cause, so to say. Queen was unreliable, uncontrollable, and so since she was a young girl, she has been kept sealed in a laboratory, experimented on and augmented to make her insect controlling abilities better. Some of you might be able to guess where her powers came from, where the power broker was able to get the ability to control insects from. So she has been locked in this facility, and of course the Thunderbolts stumble across her, which really kickstarts the plot to this movie. She was taken from her family as a young girl and sold, basically, and is now wound up a monstrosity created by the power broker. Someone who's been locked away and sealed off from the outside world, someone who's had almost no social interaction at all, and has not talked to anyone outside of scientists who experiment on them in a long time. It's a very sad origin story for a character, and one that I think is very interesting. Normally this character would sound like a villain. It's a very similar origin story to Homelander and The Boys, but I don't want to do that. I want to present this character as something hopeful, that maybe there's a chance for someone like her to follow a better path because she was taken by the Thunderbolts instead of someone who might have been a negative influence on her. It's a cool character with, as I've said, an amazingly cool power. On the surface, controlling insects might seem weak, but the more you think about it, it's a not only visually cool power, but an interesting power as far as its strengths. I've talked a lot about Queen because she will be one of the main characters of this movie, very highly focused on. That will make more sense as you see the movie. So, what is the movie about? Who are the villains and what is the plot? The plot is pretty simple. The Thunderbolts are cleaning up the aftermath of the Power Brokers Empire. They're tracking down her last labs and dismantling them, while they're also stopping bad people or whatever else they need to do. While cleaning up one of these labs, they run into Queen, obviously, sealed away in her little room where she's been experimented on for a long time. And while they're trying to extract her, someone else arrives, the villain of the movie, who comes for revenge on the Thunderbolts. It's not the Power Broker. She's not really in this movie. I lied. I tricked you. I misled you. Get tricked, nerds. The actual villain for this movie is none other than Sentry. Those who know Sentry know one or two things. One, apparently he's supposed to be the villain for the new Thunderbolts movie in the MCU, which I had already planned to use him as a villain before I even knew about that, which is insane. I guess great minds think alike. The other thing you might know about Sentry is that he's like Marvel's Superman. He's just like a Superman ripoff, and I mean, yeah, that's exactly kind of what he is. But I wanted to do something different with Sentry. I wanted to make him more interesting than just a Superman ripoff, because let's be real, evil Superman is a very tired trope at this point. We've all seen evil Superman before. We all know the trope. It's been done to death, and frankly, I'm sick of it. So instead of saying my Sentry is evil Superman, I'm going to say he's something different that happens to have the same powers as Superman, because I'm going to keep it close to the comic books, at least in their abilities, not in their origin. So who is Bjorn's Sentry? Well, Bjorn's Sentry is very similar to Queen. He is a trafficked child who has found his way into the Power Broker's hands. Although, unlike Queen, he has been molded in the Power Broker's image, raised by her, basically. He is, as she calls him, her Sentry, her guardian, her right-hand man, and he is extremely powerful. He was created by an experiment done by the Power Broker to mix almost all of the power she had together, something she tried again to a lesser effect with Taskmaster. Sentry is unique and perfect. He has all of her powers basically combined into one. He can fly. He has super strength beyond any other creation from the Power Broker. He can shoot lasers from his eyes, just like Superman. But at the core of it all, he's just a broken child who has been manipulated and misled by the Power Broker. Sentry is something I've not really done very often on my channel. He's a sympathetic villain. Now, I like sympathetic villains, but I think there's a time and a place for them. I think they're often overused at this point in Hollywood, and I've kind of always just liked a really mean bastard, like someone who's really unredeemable. But for Sentry, I wanted it to be something else. I want the audience to sympathize with him and very much like him, so that when he comes in conflict with the Thunderbolts, who we also like, there's some inner turmoil in the audience even. I described the Power Broker as ruthless and calculating when I first described her in my, writing the Thunderbolts video, whatever. For Sentry, I will describe him as relentless and brutal. He is extremely powerful and extremely angry with the Thunderbolts because they killed the Power Broker, someone who is basically like a mother to him. And he's come for blood. When I say Sentry will have a body count, you better believe it. The Thunderbolts should be very afraid of him. He isn't going to be sort of goofy, evil Superman. He is going to be scary. I kind of wanted to have the same vibe as Nightshade in my Suicide Squad stuff. When she comes on screen, you know someone's going to get hurt and that she's going to kick ass and be dangerous. And I want the same vibe for Sentry. Now, I've talked a lot about Sentry because I'm very excited to show you my portrayal of him. So the plot of this movie will be the Thunderbolts, for lack of better words, running from Sentry, trying not to die, doing everything in their power to learn to fight back against them, to find some weakness and to survive. And it's a very different movie than my first one, much darker, as you might have seen in the themes. And I think dark is pretty much the right word for it. It's good, it's got some levity moments, it's funny at certain points, but it's also brutal and sad at other points. And I think it's probably one of the better scripts I've written in concept. We'll have to see when I write it out how good it is. It is interesting for sure, very different, very much of a departure from my first script. And it will be what I would like to call the Empire Strikes Back of my Thunderbolts trilogy I planned out. This is the darkest one, and one that's story moments will carry on going forward. So y'all can expect the first episode of that at some point, probably after Justice League Dark. I thought this would be a fun surprise to drop on y'all and figured you weren't expecting it. Let me know what you think about the characters in my pitch in the comments below. If you have any ideas of what's going to happen, let me know. I always like to read through the comments, and I'll respond to every single thing you put down there, even if you just tell me that I'm ugly or something. I'll just go, hey man, that's out of pocket, and then I'll cry about it in secret. But that's the part y'all don't get to know. If you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. Yeah, that's really it. I'll see y'all in the next one. Hi, I'm Bjorn, and as you can see, we're back at the raft. You know what that means. We're doing more Thunderbolts. This time it's Thunderbolts 2, Act 1. That's going to get really confusing, but you know what? I'm not going to change it. Just some quick notes before we begin. Hey, I have a Discord. If you like this stuff or want to do your own writing, come in there. I'll give you feedback if you want it. I'm always there, so, you know, come join. Link is in the description. Number 2, I didn't bring this up in the intro bit because I forgot about it, but I want to make this movie R. The MCU has started to do R stuff. They're doing TVMA, they're doing some R stuff, and I just really thought the script would benefit from being R. So, you know what? We're doing it. To hell with it. It's R. And, you know, if that bothers you because you're an MCU purist and you have to have that crappy PG-13 MCU vibe, this is not going to be for you, I guess. I don't know. I just thought violence and some darker themes would warrant this being R and having it work within the balance of Thunderbolts. So, I'm going to make this movie R. I'm not going to waste too much more of your time. Let's just get right into the script.
We're going to open on a shot of a sketchy-looking apartment building. It's run down and dirty. The camera slowly moves through a window as we see 2 kids watching TV. We see footage of the Battle of New York playing. The Avengers stop the alien invaders and save the day. We see text on screen that says, "The Philippines, 2012." The 2 kids watch the news footage with excitement in their eyes. They've never seen anything like this before. One of them, an older boy, who's maybe 11, is drawing. He shows the crown picture he drew to his little sister who's sitting with him. He says, "If I was a superhero, I'd look like this." He shows his sister the drawing. It's a man in a yellow suit with a cape. It's supposed to be the original Sentry costume, just like, you know, drawn by a child. This dialogue would be written in Filipino. I forget what you call it. It's a different name than that, but whatever. It will be written in the Philippine language. So anytime I'm in a foreign country and a character is speaking to someone in a language they shouldn't use, they're going to be using their native languages. Just kind of keep that in the back of your minds. His sister, who's named Adriana, says, "What's he doing?" And Robert, who's the young boy, says, "He's blocking the bad guys' bullets." He says, "I won't let you hurt them." That's what Captain America would do. An older man enters the room. He looks fondly at the 2 kids. It's their father. He says, "Well, little superheroes, do you want to do a good deed?" They both nod their heads eagerly. The father says, "I need a loaf of bread from the store. I forgot to pick it up earlier and we need it for dinner. You guys think you can do that?" He hands them cash. The father then adds, "I added an extra $1 or 2 in there. Get yourself something nice." The kids grow excited. They take the money and head for the door. We see Robert fold up the picture of the superhero he drew and put it in his pocket. We see the 2 kids walking down the busy, crowded streets, heading for the grocery store. We see a van pull up next to them. 2 men jump out and grab the children and throw them inside the van before they can do it. They scream for help, but quickly have towels pull over their faces so their screams are muffled. The screen begins to fade to black and grows blurry. There's something on the towel, some sort of drug. The screen goes entirely black and lingers for a moment. As the screen fades in, we see Robert on a metal floor. The scene lazily sways from side to side. They're on a boat. He slowly sits up. His vision is still blurry, and so the camera is too. There's someone else sitting next to him. It's his sister. She trembles with fear. There are other children too, maybe 50 of them, filling what is clearly a large shipping container. His sister asks, "Are you awake?" Her voice trembles. Robert says, "Adriana, where are we? What happened?" She says, "We're on a ship. I don't know anyone here." Robert asks, "A ship?" He's confused, and then understanding lights across his eyes. He realizes the sort of situation they're in. He's heard stories of this. His sister says, "I miss home. I'm scared, Robert." He says, "Don't worry. You saw the TV. The superheroes are going to come for us. The Avengers. They'll save us." Adriana says, "Really?" Robert says, Yes. I promise." She curls into a ball and begins to cry. She says, "I hope they come soon. I miss Dad." We see a time lapse of the kids moving around inside the container as it sails across the ocean. We see Robert look through a small crack in the middle. All he can see is the ocean. Eventually, we see the rocking of the ship slowly stop. It's docked. We hear men shouting and footsteps approaching the container door. It opens, and 2 unknown men stand there, blocked by blinding light. Adriana yells, "It's the heroes!" She runs towards them before Robert can catch her. The guard at the front door catches her and throws her back into the container hard. She hits her head on the corner of a box. Blood runs down her face and she falls to the floor. The other kids all cower back, terrified. We see Robert run to his sister's side. She's still breathing. He rips off a part of his shirt and holds it to the wound. We can see blood soak into it. We see him look up at the guards with hate. Pure, unfiltered hate. The guards round up the kids and force them in the trucks. We see the trucks eventually pull into a warehouse. The kids are unloaded and forced into what are essentially large dog cages. We're going to cut to later. We see Robert and his sister sitting together. He's tied a makeshift bandage made from his clothes to the top of her head. His clothes are now tattered and dirty. Adriana says, "When are the heroes going to come?" She's terrified. Robert says, "Soon. I'm sure they're looking for us now. And when they find us, they're going to beat up these bad guys and get us home. Home to Dad." We hear a door open in the distance, and footsteps growing closer to the cage. We see all the children in the cages cower back. Some begin to sob and cry. Someone's coming. Someone they're afraid of. 3 men stop in front of the cage containing Robert and his sister. A voice speaks in English. I'm going to call this guy Locust Leader. The name of this gang doing these bad things, I can't say because of YouTube, is called Locust. So this guy will be referred to as Locust Leader for the rest of the script. He says, "Take the girl. Leave the boy. Someone is interested in her." A cruel smile corks up across his face. A large man opens the cage door and grabs Ariana and starts to drag her out. She screams for her brother and tries to get back to him. Robert rushes forward. He says, "Don't take her!" He tries smacking the man over and over again on the hand, but he doesn't even react. Then Robert bites into the flesh of his hand holding the sister. We see blood well. The guard says, "Little shit!" He backhands Robert, sending him to the floor. The camera follows him and grows blurry. We see them dragging away his sisters to shut the cage door again. Blood runs down his face, and Robert sobs. He promised to keep her safe. Everything fades to black. We see him open his eyes again. It's clear some time has passed. Quite a bit of time. Robert looks older, dirtier. His face is gaunt, and his bones skinny. Outside his cage, a woman in a butterfly mask studies him. Next to her is Locust Leader. Robert's eyes grow wild. He snarls and rushes at the cage entrance. He attacks and lashes out, trying to claw at the people outside the cage. One of the traffickers sticks him with a stun baton. Robert climbs backwards to the back of the cage. The power broker, the woman in the butterfly mask obviously, looks at him and tilts her head. She says, "This one." Locust member says, "Are you sure? He's wild. We have many more that are more docile." Power broker says, "I don't want a docile subject. We need fury for a successful test. This one is perfect. Perhaps he will succeed where the others have failed." The Locust man nods and opens the cage. Robert backs up to the back wall of the cage, pinned in, terrified, unsure of what to do. The power broker asks the Locust Leader in English, "Where is he from originally?" Locust Leader replies, "The Philippines, I believe." Power broker nods. She adjusts a setting on her mask, and when she speaks, it's in Filipino, a robotic voice, one that's being translated from her words. She says, "I have come to help you. I will take you to a better place. Come. I want to save you from these men." She holds out her hand. Robert cautiously studies it, unsure of what to do, then takes it. What does he have to lose? She helps him out of the cage, then walks him out of the building. We're going to cut to the power broker's lab. We see Robert sitting in a medical examination room. Power broker walks in. Her mask still speaks to him in Filipino. "You hate them, don't you? The men who took you. You want to destroy them. I see it in your eyes." Robert snarls, "They took my sister. They hurt her." We hear the words translated in Power Broker's ear. "What if I could give you the power to hurt them? Power unlike anything you could imagine. What if I could make you into a superhero?" Robert says, "Can you?" Power Broker says, "I can, but it's not without risk. There is a chance you could die. It is small but present. However, with the power I could give you, you could tear them apart." Robert says, "If I do it, could you find my sister? Help her, please, even if I die. She was taken too, and I'm worried she could be hurt. Or worse." Power Broker says, "That is the very reason I do what I do. I care for you. I will help your sister. I want to help all the children like you. Someone has to. We see time pass. Robert is being strapped to a table. Yellow vials of serum are hooked into needles on an injector device, similar to the one we see used in Captain America. Robert doesn't even look afraid. Hate is driving him forward. Fear is gone from his mind. The camera pans out until we're out of the room. We see Power Broker and her lead scientist from the first movie, studying the boy hooked to the machine. The scientist says, "It's not too late to call off the test. We could give him one of the more functional powers. Project Sentry has failed 33 times. That's 33 dead kids." Power Broker says, "We have to get Project Sentry up and running. Think about it. If we could have a breakthrough, Sentry could be worth more than fucking vibranium. This serum would make the perfect superhuman." Scientist says, "If it'll ever work. It's a messy cocktail with 10 different powers. We've only ever succeeded in getting 2 in a single subject before. This is pushing the bounds of possibility." Power Broker says, "And it only needs to work once. I don't care how many kids I have to burn through to get it. Think of the good it could do. It could make the world a better place. And the money. You would be wealthier than you can imagine." She's trying to appeal to the scientist's wants, his needs. He says, "I don't know. What if it never works?" Power Broker says, "Then we keep trying. Keep changing the formula. If you're having second thoughts, you can step away. I promise I won't stop you. But know the research will continue without you. Without your expertise, I imagine more children would die." The scientist shakes his head. "You're insane." Power Broker says, "No, not insane. Just driven. I know what I want. Press the fucking button." The scientist's hands linger over the button. Should he do it? There's a chance he's going to kill this child. Finally, he gives in. He presses it. We see the serum lower down and inject into Robert. He screams in pain as the serum rocks through his body. We see his veins turn yellow. His eyes begin to glow a bright yellow. Suddenly, laser beams launch from them and cut a hole through the ceiling. He screams as his muscles begin to grow larger. He breaks through one of the metal harnesses holding him down and begins to shake. He's seizing. Power Broker says, "That's new." The scientist says his heart rate is through the roof, but he isn't flatlining. This could be it. We see Robert begin to grow taller. His bones break and re-knit. His muscles are large now, as if he's been working out his whole life or using steroids. His hair turns from black to a bright golden blonde. He breaks through his last metal harness with a scream. He begins to levitate, floating above the table. Suddenly, he passes out and falls to the ground. Power Broker asks, "Is he?" The scientist says, "He's stable. More than that. He's exceeding our expectations. Everything here, his vitals, they're amazing. I think this could be the success you were looking for." Power Broker says, "We have to test it." We see them approach him unconscious on the table. Power Broker pulls up a small scalpel from the table and tries to cut Robert. The knife strikes his skin and breaks. It doesn't even leave a mark. The scientist says, "A success. Even the sample we took from Luke Cage. Invulnerable skin, flight capabilities, ocular heat manipulation, super strength." Power Broker says, "He's perfect. We need more tests. If we finally have a Sable serum, we need to find out. I've tracked down the sister. They should have certain genetic similarities. We'll try it on her today. Congratulations, Doctor. I'll wait here for him to wake up. I'll need him. Continue your work. Test the sister." We see time pass as the broker watches Sentry sleep. Eventually, the scientists return. He's grimacing. He says, "We tested the sister like you asked." The broker says, "And?" Scientist says, "A failure, I'm afraid. She showed no signs of developing powers. There were other complications of a more permanent nature. She flatlined on the table, and we managed to get her into a coma. We're trying to revive her, but it's unlikely. She shows no sign of having powers, so we're going to pull the plug." The broker says, "How disappointing. The boy will be upset, of course, but I think I can use that. We'll move to plan B then. I'm sure I can get him to see reason. Leave me now. Find more test subjects. Test it more. We need to figure out what went wrong." Scientist says, "As you say." He makes a note on his device and then leaves. Through the window, we can see Sentry is now awake. Power Broker smiles and enters the room. Sentry asks, "My sister, is she okay?" The broker says, "We found her, but we were too late to save her. She was already dead. Long dead. I'm sorry." Sentry says, "No, That can't be. She can't be dead. I promised her I was going to keep her safe. He begins to sob, then he screams and yells. He smashes a fist straight through a concrete wall. It shatters beneath him as if it was nothing but styrofoam. Sentry says, "What did we do to them? Why would they hurt her?" He fires his laser vision in fury into a television across the room. It melts. He screams again. Powerbroker simply stares at him. She doesn't even react. "They are uncaring, vile people," she says. She stops and thinks carefully, then says, "They are a blight on this world. I know I could never bring her back to you, but I can give you something else." She hands him a data pad. On it, we see satellite images of a warehouse. The men who took you belong to an organization called Locus. This is their headquarters, and where they keep the children they traffic. Children like you and your sister. I'm just a woman. I have no powers beyond my mind, but I see a world better than this, and I want to create it. What I need is a sentry, someone strong enough to fight by my side to help me create a better world. If I were to find him, my sentry's first mission would be to kill these men and free their captives. I want you to be my sentry, Robert. In exchange, I offer you revenge, and I offer you the wealth and power to make the world a better place. Sentry looks down at the satellite images and wipes away his tears. He says, "I'll do it. I'll kill them all." Powerbroker holds out a hand and Sentry shakes it. She leaves the room. We see Sentry pull out a picture from his pocket. It's a drawing of a yellow-suited superhero, the one he made for his sister. He holds it to his heart. A vow. He's going to make the world a better place. We cut to the warehouse from earlier. We see Locust men walking past kids in cages. Lightning strikes in the distance. Its light illuminates the children cowering in the corners. We see the Locust leader. He taps his earpiece and says, "Zoo, do a sweep of the outside. The broker is coming back tonight. She just called us. We need it to go well. She's one of our best customers." The grunt heads outside the building. It's raining now. He starts to circle the building. Lightning strikes again. In the flash of light, we see Sentry floating in the air behind the man. The light fades and he's plunged into darkness. In that dark, two dots of light glow. A laser blast launches from Sentry's eyes and slices the guard in two. We cut back to the inside. We see another Locust guard touch his earpiece. "Zoo, where are you? That perimeter check should have been done already. Report." From behind him, we hear a child's voice whisper in accented English. "Dead." The two guards turn to see Sentry standing there. While still a child, he's extremely muscular. There's blood splatter on his face. His blonde hair is dripping wet. The fluorescent lights above flicker. The two guards turn and fire at him. The bullets simply bounce off his skin and fall to the floor. Sentry takes a step forward and grabs one of the guards by the throat. He squeezes, ripping the man's throat apart, decapitating him. The other guard turns to run. Sentry's eyes glow, and he takes the man's legs off with his laser sight. The guard screams and tries to crawl away as blood leaks from his legs. Sentry floats off the ground behind him. His eyes glow again, and laser bolts strike the guard in the back of the head, killing him. We see the children hide away in the corners of the cages. Sentry looks at them, then smiles as kindly as he can. He says, "I'm here to save you." Hearing their language, many of the kids come to the entrance of the cages. Sentry unlocks them with his bare hands, smashing the locks out one by one. The children pour out and surround him. They hold his hands and cling to him. Their savior, one of their own, has come to save them. A superhero, like he promised. A door kicks open and a man with a gun exits. It's the Locust leader. He opens fire. Sentry rushes forward and catches the bullets on his chest. All the children cower in fear. He turns his eyes to the leader, the man who took his sister. He says, "I won't let you hurt them." He levitates off the floor. We see the Locust leader desperately try to reload his gun. He's too slow. Sentry is on him in a second. He hits him in the face hard. We see his nose break and his teeth fall out. The man stumbles back and falls to the floor. Sentry rushes and lands on top of him. He hits him again and again until the leader's face is a mess of gore. We see Sentry covered in blood. He smiles. The screen fades to black, and we see text that says 16 years later. We fade in on a large blonde man sitting in a noodle shop. It's a much older Robert. He eats at the counter. A TV in the corner is playing the news. We see a report about the Thunderbolts killing Powerbroker. The man at the bar looks up and watches the TV. We see his hands begin to shake. He grabs the corner of the counter, and it crunches beneath his hands. He stands and leaves money. He leaves the restaurant. Under his breath, we can hear him murmur, Thunderbolts! With rage. Suddenly, the man flies into the air. We're going to smash cut to a kid playing with a toy Quinjet. He makes sound effects as he does it. We see John Walker watching his son with a fond smile on his face. His wife is sitting next to him. She holds his hand. John Walker says, "You know, Henry, I fly those at work." His son lights up. "Really?" John Walker says, "All the time. I'll take you on a ride sometime." Henry says, "That would be awesome. I saw you on TV. You fought a guy who shot fire from his hands. You blocked it with your shield." John Walker smiles. He says, "That I did." He wasn't as scary as he looked. Suddenly, the door to the hotel room opens and Speed Demon rushes in. He says, "Hi guys, Walker. They're on the way. 4 or 5 minutes out." John Walker says, "All right, I'll be 2. Speed Demon vanishes in an instant, the door shutting. John turns to look at his family with somber eyes. He says, "I gotta go, kiddo." His son says, "Already?" John Walker says, "Yeah, I'm sorry. I wish I could stay longer." Henry says, "It's okay. You're a superhero. You probably have to go fight another bad guy." John Walker says, "Yeah, that's it. Real big guy, too. You'll see it on TV." He turns to his wife and kisses her. Olivia, his wife, says, "Do you have to go?" John Walker says, "I wish I didn't." She asks, "When does this end, John?" John says, "When kids like him are safe. I know I'm doing what's right. I'm just sorry you have to face the consequences like this." Speed Demon appears again. He taps a fake watch on his arm. "Sorry, man. We're out of time. You gotta go." His wife looks at him and smiles and says, "Just be safe." John Walker says, "I will. I love you. Both of you." He runs to Speed Demon, and they both disappear in a blur of motion. We see a SWAT team start to pull up on the hotel. They've come for Walker just too late. We cut to the inside of a Quinjet. U.S. Agent and Speed Demon enter it in a blur of motion. U.S. Agent shakes his head. "They're getting faster every time." Dallas says, "Well, you are technically a wanted terrorist. I'd just say they're doing their job well." She's in a new outfit, matching the Vantage outfit from the comics. I really like the design of it. I'll flash it here for a second. I think it's really cool. The U.S. Agent says, "Too well. This is personal for Ross. He's focusing on us." Songbird says, "Well, you did threaten to kill him." U.S. Agent says, "I guess I did. What do you have for me, Dallas?" Dallas says, "Schematics, pulled right from the CIA database, courtesy of Ghost." We see Ghost sitting in one of the Quinjet chairs. She looks away. Dallas presses a button and a hologram of building schematics appear in the air. It's some kind of underground base or laboratory. U.S. Agent says, "Wow, this one's big." Speed Demon says, "This is the biggest lab she had besides the tower. She used to talk about it. I knew she was hiding something here, just don't know what." Dallas says, "It's also the last one. We clear this one off the map and we're free of the power broker." Songbird says, "Good riddance." U.S. Agent says, "Right. Dallas, run me through it." Dallas says, "The building is a fortress, but we expected that. This lab appears to have the most armed guards of any of these. CIA documents estimate upwards of 60 to 70. Someone is still funding these guys, but we shut this one down and they're done. No more labs. This is their last bastion. 2 entrances, 2 teams. We'll meet heavy resistance, but I don't think it's anything we can't handle. We go in, we take any evidence we can find, we destroy the rest." U.S. Agent nods. "Solid plan as always. Songbird, Speed Demon, you 2 take the west entrance here. Ghost, you're with me, and Dallas, we'll take the north entrance. Remember, any serum we find needs to be destroyed. I don't want to leave anything behind for unsavory hands, not even a drop." We're going to see the helicopter touch down to the jungle clearing, and the Thunderbolts exit it. It's been some time, the helicopter flew here or whatever, off screen. We get the team up shot. The title appears above it. It says, "Thunderbolts, Legacy of Power." We're going to cut to the jungle. We see Dallas and U.S. Agent walking through the foliage. U.S. Agent says, "So, Powers, how are you adjusting?" Dallas says, "Well, actually, there's certainly an advantage in combat." U.S. Agent says, "That they are. Any progress on a name? We are superheroes, after all. The gimmick is part of the charm. It makes the public want to trust us more." Dallas says, "No luck. Any ideas?" U.S. Agent says, "You're barking up the wrong tree. You should try Speed Demon. He's good at that kind of stuff." Suddenly, Ghost appears, phasing through the trunk of a large tree. She carries a sword that's dripping with blood. Ghost says, "Patrol of 3 men ahead. One of them straggled behind, and I took him." U.S. Agent says, "All right, let's get to work." We see them burst through the clearing. 3 armed men with machine guns are completely caught off guard. Dallas is carrying a metal staff. She twirls it and sticks it in the ground. She spins around and smashes her feet into the first man. It breaks his neck, killing him. We see U.S. Agent smash into one using his shield.
The armed guard is sent flying into a tree. He's impaled on a branch. The last man turns and fires at Ghost. She phases and the bullets pass right through her. She flicks her sword out and impales him through the neck. She slashes sideways, nearly cutting his head off. He falls to the ground, bleeding from his neck. Dead. As I said, I'm going R. All the action is going to be like this. Pretty brutal. I think it fits the tone of this movie better. Dallas says, quickly, before they realize what's happening. We see them move towards a large concrete entrance to an underground lab. We cut to Speed Demon and Songbird. We see them approach a metal door in a different concrete bunker. We see some men defeated on the ground around them. They've already taken care of their guards. Songbird screams, ripping the door off the hinges. Guards are in the hall waiting for their attack. They hold up guns, preparing to fire. We see Speed Demon shoot forward at super speed. We see it in slow motion as he moves from guard to guard, hitting them in the face hard. Their teeth are knocked out. He turns around, still in super speed, and heads back towards Songbird. As he does, he hits the same guards again. When he reaches her, he stops running, and all the guards crumple to the floor. Songbird and Speed Demon enter the building. They reach an intersection. 4 more guards push in from the left side of the hall. Songbird turns towards them and screams. She amplifies the sound. Sound waves smash into the guards. Blood runs from their ears, noses, and eyes as they're thrown back down the hall. They don't get back up. 2 more guards rush in and open fire. Songbird forms a wall of hard light on instinct, catching the bullets. Speed Demon zips around the wall and punches one of the guards in the face. He's sent flying back. A fist of hard light is formed from the wall and slams into the last guard. Speed Demon sort of sarcastically brushes off his hands. He says, "Good work." Songbird says, "Likewise. I swear this gets easier every time." Speed Demon says, "We're too good for these chumps." We're going to cut to the others. We see Dallas punch a guard. He crumples to the floor in a mess of broken bones. She spins her staff around and cracks another one over the head. She hits the last guard with the staff in the gut. He staggers back into U.S. Agent, who slams him with his shield. U.S. Agent turns and throws his shield off a wall. It slams off the wall and into another guard, and then bounces back to the wall again. It bounces off the wall once more time and knocks out a second guard, sort of like ping-ponging between them. The shield falls to the floor. We see Ghost stab a guard in the chest. She phases through him with her sword in her hand and kills another one. Suddenly she stops. In front of her we see another Ghost. Then another one. They fill the hall in front of her everywhere, even where there should be people. She begins to phase out of control. We see echoes of Ghosts splitting off her body in 100 different directions. They move in all different manner of way, flipping out, making like a really weird psychedelic visual. We hear random phrases and words being whispered from all around her. Eventually, many of them begin to synchronize into an echoing voice. "Danger! He's coming!" Another voice, slightly different pitched. "He killed us! He's coming! Look out! Sentry!" Another one says, "Sentry! Can't stop him! Too late!" You know, just sort of echoing all over. The words echo 100 times. Ghost screams in pain and reaches her hand out. All the other ghosts vanish. Her hand is inside a guard who's shooting at her. The bullets pass right through her. He looks down in horror as blood begins to leak from his mouth. Ghost pulls her hand back. It's covered in blood. She phased into him and destroyed his heart. Dallas looks at Ghost oddly. "Are you alright? You were screaming." Ghost says, "Fine, just I don't know what that was." We're going to cut to Speed Demon and Songbird. We see Speed Demon and Songbird moving through a hall filled with dead guards. Speed Demon looks down and we see ants moving around on the floor. He raises an eyebrow and watches as the ants climb up the wall. The ants begin to move across the wall, spelling out the words, "Help me." Speed Demon says, "Hey, Songbird, are you seeing this too?" Songbird turns and looks at the wall as well. She spots the ants and frowns. Songbird says, "Yeah, I believe the ants are talking to us." Speed Demon says, "How do I help you?" Another group of ants climb up the wall and swarm together to make an arrow pointing down the hall. Songbird says, "This has been a really weird day." Speed Demon says, "You're telling me. Do we follow them?" Songbird says, "They need our help." Speed Demon nods. That's all he needed to hear. We follow them as they follow the ants. The arrow moves down the wall, guiding them until they reach a large laboratory room. 2 glass cases in the middle of the room contain an Ant-Man suit and a Wasp suit. They're the older ones from the original Ant-Man and the Wasp. You know, like the ones from I think it's like the 60s or the 70s. We see the Ant-Man suit has been taken apart in certain parts. There are schematics on the wall analyzing the earpieces. They were trying to figure out how to communicate with insects. The whole back wall of the lab is filled with glass cages. Speed Demon zips up to them and looks inside. In one we see a hive of wasps. In the next one we see spider webs. We see a black widow clinging to the webs. In the back of the room there's a large metal door built into the concrete of the main wall. We see a sign in black and yellow lettering above the metal door. It says, "Do not open. Project Antlion can't break containment." Speed Demon says, "They're keeping bugs in here." Songbird says,
Why? Speed Demon says, I don't know, but it's probably not a coincidence that the ants led us here. The ants climb up on the metal door. They spell out, in here, need help. Speed Demon says, you think you can open this with your voice? Songbird says, probably. She turns to the ants on the door. This feels silly, but if you can hear me, move away from the door and cover your ears. The ants all clear away from the metal door, indicating they heard. Songbird gives Speed Demon a thumbs up. He plugs his ears, and she screams. She amplifies the sound waves. They slam into the metal door, ripping it off its hinges and throwing it back into the adjacent wall. Red lights begin to flash in the room, and we hear sirens as the door is blown open. A voice comes over the intercom. Warning! Containment breach. Project Antlion has broken free. Warning! Containment breach. There's a dust cloud kicked up by the destruction of the door. We hear ominous music play as the dust settles. We see a figure. It's a girl, roughly the same age as Songbird and Speed Demon, with long, white, unkempt hair. She's curled up in the corner of the small concrete cell. She stands uneasily to her feet and slowly steps out of the cell. She runs over to Speed Demon. He puts his arms up as if to guard off an attack from her. Instead of attacking him, she wraps him in a hug. She begins to sob. Thank you, thank you. She moves to Songbird and hugs her too. She's crying with joy. She's skinny and bony. She wears a simple white outfit. It looks almost like a prison uniform. The strangest thing about her is a pair of large insect wings folded along her back. They look like the ones from the Wasp uniform, only she's not wearing a costume. They're in her skin. She unwraps herself from one very confused Songbird. Speed Demon says, oh, well, it's no problem. Queen says, you're superheroes, aren't you? Songbird says, yes, we're the Thunderbolts. The girl nods. That's good. That's good. She begins to stagger back towards the backside of the room where the terrariums are. She picks up a lamp from a desk and begins to smash it against the glass cages. She shatters tank after tank. We see insects begin to slowly climb out. Speed Demon says, hey, be careful, those are dangerous. Queen shakes her head. No, they're my friends. She reaches out a hand and pulls up a black widow spider. It climbs around her, then sits on the top of her palm. She whispers something to it, then sets it back on the table. Swarms of wasps gather around her, and fire ants begin to pool across the table. All of the insects begin to move into vents in the ceiling. Songbird whispers, she's one of the power brokers. Queen hears her, turns and says, no, I'm not one of hers. She trapped me here. She did this to me. Queen moves aside her long white hair. We can see there's pieces of technology grafted into her skin. They're worked into her skull and likely connected to her brain in some way. She's basically a cyborg. Queen says, I'm gonna kill them all for what they did. Those men, I hate them. Speed Demon shoots a nervous look at Songbird. Speed Demon says, who? Queen says, the men here. Her people. I already gave the order. We're gonna cut to the air vent as the song Paralyzer by 11 Finger begins to play. We see spiders clinging to the ceiling, moving quickly in all directions. Wasps fly in the air and ants swarm across the ground. We see them pour out of the vents. Two guards notice them. One of them quickly clicks his radio. Project Antlion has broken containment. Code red. We see a wasp fly right into his eye and sting him. He screams. The wasps swarm him, stinging him all across his body. He tries to slap them away, but it's futile. There's too many of them. A second guard tries to run, but we see a black widow clawing up its neck. It's already onto him. It bites him. He cries and tries to slap it, but the spider deftly moves away, dodging the strike. It bites him again and again. We can see multiple spiders all across his body, biting him all over. He falls to the floor. Blood is running from his nose and he's foaming at the mouth. The alarm starts to go off in earnest. We see red flashing lights all through the halls. Two guards are trying to run for an exit. Ants begin to climb up their legs, stinging them all across their body. They scream and fall to the floor, trying to swat and roll at the ants. It's too late. They're covered head to toe in fire ants. They writhe in pain for a while, then stop. We see swarms of wasps attacking other guards, surrounding them and stinging them. They're about to move to the next when a bullet rips through the guard's head. One of the wasps turns its head. We see U.S. agent holding a pistol with his shield. We cut back to the room with Songbird and Speed Demon. Queen turns and looks at them. The one with the shield. Is he with you? Speed Demon says, yes, there should be 3 in total. 2 women and the shield guy. Queen says, I see them. He just shot somebody. What kind of superheroes are you? Songbird smiles. The effective kind. We kill those who deserve it. Queen nods her head. She seems to approve. Good. These do. We see the wasps move past U.S. Agent Dallas and Ghost without issue. They look confused at the unusual sight. The wasps turn the corner and attack a final guard. He screams as they surround him. We see Queen laugh maniacally. She begins to sway. A trickle of blood runs from her nose. She falls over and Speed Demon rushes forward using his super speed to catch her. She's completely unconscious. He picks her up and carries her easily. He whispers, "She's tiny. They were starving her." Songbird says, "Let's get her out of here." Speed Demon nods. He asks, "Can you finish up here?" She says, "Yeah, I'll destroy it all." Speed Demon nods. "All right." He speeds away carrying Queen. We see him quickly appear outside in the jungle. He keeps running through the forest at super speed until he reaches the clearing where the helicopter landed. He gently sets down Queen in the grass. We see her eyes slowly open. She looks towards the sky and gasps. She hasn't seen it in a long time, if she's ever seen it. She begins to cry with delight. She says, "I thought I was dreaming. Are you real?" Speed Demon nods. "Yeah, I'm real." "I'm James, and you are?" She says, "I am the Queen." Speed Demon says, "Okay, yeah, do you have a real name?" She says, "I think I did once, but I can't remember it." Speed Demon says, "How long have you been down there?" She says, "As long as I can remember, since I was a little girl. I don't think I've ever seen the sky. I've heard about it, read about it. It's more beautiful than I was expecting." Speed Demon looks at her with horror. They've kept a child locked up in a room. She's never seen the outside world. Never been outside of a little concrete room. They made a monster. We're gonna cut to an apartment high-rise. Text on screen says Tokyo. We see an older Robert, aka Sentry, enter the apartment. He's muscular, large, just like we remember him. He's even more muscular than he was as a child. Basically, this guy is absolutely shredded. I don't know who you'd get to play him, but bulk the shit out of him. Make him look like Thor or something. He opens up the apartment door and enters it. He says, "Kiko, I'm home." He's speaking Japanese. A pregnant woman steps out from the kitchen to meet him. She pecks him on the lips and rubs his hand affectionately. Then she goes back to her work cooking. She asks, "How was it today?" Robert says, "Good, actually. I took down a large-scale Yakuza drug operation. Bad people. They got what they deserved." Kiko says, "That's good. Are you all right?" Robert says, "Of course. You know they can't hurt me. How about you?" She says, "Oh, you know, the same. The baby kicked today. I felt it." Sentry floats off the ground and rushes to her. He takes her hand. "It didn't hurt you, did it?" She says, No, I'm fine." He looks relieved. She muses, "You think he's going to have your powers, don't you?" He shakes his head. "I don't know. It's a possibility. I hope it doesn't." She looks confused at that. "Why?" Robert says, "Because I want our child to have a normal life. Like the one I never got to. I just want him to be happy." His wife squeezes his hand. He will be loved." Robert says, "I got a call today. My man, he found them. The Thunderbolts. They hit one of the Power Broker's old labs." Kiko says, "Oh, the ones who killed the Power Broker. You're going to go after them, aren't you?" Robert says, "I am. I had my man place a tracker on their airship. It won't take me long, but this is something I have to do. I'll be gone for a few days." Kiko says, "Please, Robert, be careful. They are dangerous people if they killed the broker." Robert says, "So am I. I'll be safe. I promise. Once this is done, I can finally move on. I can focus on being the best father I can. I do this to make the world safer for our son, like the broker would have wanted." He runs a loving hand across her body and smiles. He only has one task keeping him from his happiness. He has to kill the Thunderbolts, the ones who murdered the woman who raised him, the person who became his mother, the person who just wanted to make the world a better place. So, that's the end of the first act. I think you guys kind of get where the story is going. We've got Sentry, arguably a good person, a sympathetic villain who's had a very rough upbringing. Unfortunately for him, his worldview has been clouded by the Power Broker, someone who the Thunderbolts murdered, as I implied in my first video about this. Sentry will be the main antagonist going forward. We've also introduced some other side characters. The new character Queen, I think you guys kind of see where I'm going for with that. Her power is very, very cool and will only get more fun. As you can imagine, it's surprisingly powerful. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on here. The script only gets darker from here. The next act will be brutal. The action sequences will be a lot more violent than they were in the past movie because I am going for that R rating. I think the script is pretty good, and I'll have the next part out as soon as I can.
Wow, that was certainly something. A little darker than the last one, yeah? I spent a lot of this part going over Sentry's origin story, and I think that's because it's very relevant to understanding the next two parts. This was the chill before the thrill. The next two parts will be much more action-oriented. They will be, as I said in my little outro, a bit darker and more brutal. So y'all can look forward to that. I'll try to get those out very soon. If you like this video, make sure you like and subscribe. It really helps the channel if you leave a comment below. Apparently that boosts the algorithm, but so if you like this movie, tell me what you thought below. If you didn't like it, rant at me below. It helps me either way. I'm benefiting from this situation, right? I win no matter what. If you think you know what's going to happen next, you take a wild swing at it with like a baseball bat and see if you're correct or not. Maybe I'll tell you. Who knows? This Friday, I'm going to be releasing my next TV show. We're going to start gearing up to produce content again. I was gone for a while, so I've got some stuff backlogged, finished and ready to be released. So we've got Fallout television show. First episode this Friday. So 2 videos this week, guys. Get excited. If you're looking for something else to watch right now, obviously I've got Suicide Squad here. You can finish that and then jump to Justice League Dark. More DC stuff. If you've already seen Suicide Squad, I recommend Justice League Dark. I've also got Deadlands here, newly finished. It's done. Benito. So you guys can check that out. Alright, I will see y'all in the next one. I'm out of here. Hi, I'm Bjorn, and I do movies. And welcome back to the channel about a YouTuber who's totally not standing right behind you. I'm not there. Don't turn around. Don't look. I'm not standing right behind you. You totally turned around and looked, man. And I wasn't there. Because I wasn't standing behind you, man. That's crazy, man. I'm just like I'm not there now. Standing behind you. Watching this video. In some sort of bizarre paradox of reality. Made you look again, man. Because I'm not standing behind you, and I'm totally not hiding in your closet right now. That's just a crazy thing to even suggest. I don't know why you guys keep suggesting that I'm hiding in your closet. That's a ridiculous thought. I'm not there. I'm not. Alright? Can we drop the subject? I don't use a green screen, and I'm not hiding in your closet right now, okay? So let's drop the concept altogether. Alright. So, some of y'all might be wondering, Eward, where have you been? You said you were going on a month-long hiatus, and now it's like 3 months later. What the hell happened, dude? And, hold on, I'm sorry, I'm trying to think of a lie that's convincing. Oh, I got hit by a bus. And I went to hell. There I was in hell, where I met, Satan, like the devil himself. And the devil was like, yo, Bjorn, I love your videos, man. The devil likes my videos. And I was like, oh, that's cool, man. He's like, yeah, I really want to see Thunderbolts Part 2, so we're going to send you right on up to the mortal plane. You're going to come back to life so that you can finish those videos. So that's what happened. That's it. That was what happened. And so without further ado, let's just get right into the Thunderbolts Act 2. Let's go.
All right, we're going to open inside the Quinjet, leaving the Power Brokers facility. U.S. Agent Dallas and Ghost all stare down at the new girl. She sleeps in the Quinjet after she passed out in the field. U.S. Agent asks, "Who is she?" Speed Demon says, "Don't know. Calls herself Queen. She's one of the Power Brokers' victims, like me." U.S. Agent asks, "Is she dangerous?" Speed Demon says, "To others, maybe, but to us, no, I don't think she is. She told me she wants to be a hero like us." Dallas says, "So we're picking up strays now." Speed Demon says, "I was a stray once." U.S. Agent says, "If she wants to fight with us, we let her. You saw what she did with the bugs. She's strong and a little bit scary, but she needs our help." Dallas says, "You're too damn noble sometimes, John. That's it then. She's a Thunderbolt." Songbird says, "She's going to need clothes. We can't have her going around dressed like a prisoner." Dallas says, "I know a place. There's this massive open market outside of Yangon, not far from here. We can make a pit stop." Speed Demon says, "Now that sounds fun. A little vacation. I think we've earned a break." U.S. Agent says, "That we have. The Power Brokers organization is done." Songbird says, "Good riddance. I'll be glad to never have to think about her again. I think we all are." We're gonna smash cut, like do a comedy cut, the Sentry in bed. He wakes up and looks over at his wife where she sleeps. He lovingly strokes her hair. Then he gets out of bed and pulls some sort of device out of his bedside table. It's a tracker. He goes into his closet and pulls out a secret drawer and removes the Sentry costume from the comics. It's basically the same way he drew it as a kid. It's the same comic version for the most part too. Not the original design, but the later one. I really like. I'll put a picture of it here. I really like that design. In the same drawer, we see his drawing of a superhero he made and a picture of him with the Power Broker. He takes both and puts the costume on before leaving the room. His wife is out of bed standing there waiting for him. She says, "You were going to leave me while I was asleep." Sentry said, "I told you I was going. I figured I shouldn't disturb you." Kiko says, "You could never do that." I just want you to be careful, Robert, please. And as always, I mentioned this in the last part, they're going to be speaking Japanese here because she's Japanese and he's been living in Japan. The main reason being I hate in movies where two Japanese characters will speak to each other in English because it's a Hollywood movie. Like, why in the earth would they ever be speaking outside their native language? Just for no other reason than the audience. It bugs me, so we'll definitely be keeping that there. Sentry says, I always am. They couldn't lay a finger on me if they wanted to. His wife says, look at me. She moves his head to look her in the eyes. Don't lose yourself in this. I don't want you to end up like my brother. Sentry says, I won't. I'll come home to you the same as always. She says, I love you. And Sentry says, I love you more. We're going to cut to the Quinjet as it lands in the tropics in a clearing. The city they're going to, Yangon, is in Myanmar, which is tropical. Think like Vietnam or the Philippines. So just sort of picture that in your head. I'm sure you've heard of those places. Myanmar is probably lesser known, but you can kind of get an idea of what it'll look like. U.S. agent says, James, Melissa, don't be gone too long. Speed Demon says, relax, we'll be in and out. Quick is what I do best, right? U.S. agent says, right. We see Queen, who's now awake, step out with them. So we're really going to go shopping? Speed Demon says, yeah, should be fun. Get you out of the cage, right? She sort of smiles. Yeah, I can't wait. We're going to see a montage of Speed Demon, Songbird, and Queen exploring the market and shopping. We hear the song Young and Restless by the Siamese playing. Queen is nervous at first, but she quickly warms up and starts to have fun. By the end, she's excited by everything she gets to see for the first time, and she's having a good time. Also, real quick side tangent again. The band that sings Young and Restless is awesome. I've used their stuff before, I believe, but it's one of my favorite bands of all time, like in my top 5 probably. I highly recommend checking out their songs like The Wolf and Mr. Fear. They're great. They have a bunch of other lesser known songs too that are really good. If you're in my Discord, link in the description, I can give you some more recommendations for bands like them and some more of their music, so definitely check them out. We're going to cut back to the Quinjet. We see Ghost sharpening her sword. Dallas walks by to go to U.S. agent. She says, about the superhero name, I was thinking, you know how we always say that powers are just an advantage in combat, like having a gun in a knife fight? It's about how you use them, not the powers themselves. U.S. agent says, sure. So how about that? I could be Advantage. It sounds like a superhero name to me. U.S. agent says, don't know about that. A little bit clunky, like Advantage. It's a lot of syllables. Dallas says, really? I thought it was good. U.S. agent says, how about just Vantage? Flows off the tongue better. Dallas says, Vantage. Yeah, I like it. U.S. agent says, it suits you. You could always see what others couldn't. You know. Dallas says, that could be my catchphrase. U.S. agent says, don't go too crazy now. The day the Thunderbolts start throwing around catchphrases is the day I quit. We're going to cut back to Songbird, Speed Demon, and Queen. They enter a clothing store in the middle of the market. Like one of those clothing stores that kind of go out into the street and then deeper into a building. If you've been to open markets and basically anywhere, but specifically big cities, you'll see these a lot. Songbird says, James, can you find us something to eat? We're going to be trying on some clothes and we don't necessarily need a guy watching. Speed Demon laughs and says, sure, I'll find something great. But try purple. Looks like it'd be her color. I'll be back in a flash. Queen blushes and looks away nervously as Speed Demon skips off. Songbird says, that guy, I swear. Although, you would look good in purple. Yeah, let's look for something purple. They're going to look around the store for a while until they find a shirt, purple blouse, whatever. I don't do clothing. That's the job of the costumer, not my job. And then they take it into the back behind a little curtain to try it on. We see Queen take off her shirt. Hidden beneath it is a pair of wings like a dragonfly. We can see scar tissue and cybernetics worked all across her back and front. Surgical stars run all across her body. It's clear that they did a number of surgeries and experiments on her. She quickly slides on the new shirt and turns around in it. She says, what do you think? She looks at herself in the mirror. Songbird says, it looks really good on you. Queen says, you think? And Songbird says, yeah, I do. It suits you. Now let's find one that'll work as a costume. She says, for being a superhero? Songbird says, exactly. We're going to cut outside the clothing store. We see Songbird and Queen each carrying a couple bags of clothes. They've been doing a lot of shopping. Speed Demon is waiting for them, leaning against the wall outside the store. He zips over to them and says, wow, you guys did some shopping. Hey, like the shirt. I told you purple would look good. Songbird says, yeah, we did some shopping. Now did you do your job? Speed Demon says, did I do my job? Oh yeah, I found a curry place down the street. Queen says, curry? He says, it's food. You'll like it. We see them like walking down the street, going to a curry place. It's supposed to be like a little slice of life sequence. It does go on for a little bit, but I swear there's a purpose to this sequence. We see Queen as they sit down at the table. She looks at the bowl of curry and says, so this is what food is supposed to look like? Speed Demon says, I mean, not all food. This is called curry. Queen says, curry. It smells good. She sticks her spoon in the bowl and quickly takes a bite. Her eyes go wide. That's amazing. I don't think I've ever had anything this good. She takes another bite and then another one. I didn't remember that this is what food was supposed to taste like. I mean, I mostly ate this gray mush. The scientists called it nutrient meal. They said it was going to make me strong, but I hated it. It was so bitter. Speed Demon says, oh, yeah, most food doesn't taste like gray mush, except for maybe cauliflower. I don't like cauliflower. Queen says, so most food tastes like this? Speed Demon says, well, not exactly, but yeah, ballpark. Queen says, wow, can I have some more? Songbird says, sure, you can have as much as you'd like. We're going to hard cut to 3 empty bowls in front of Queen. Songbird says, well, we did say she could have some more. Speed Demon says, yeah, Queen here could really put him back. He slaps her on the back affectionately. She says, thank you, both of you, for all of this. I never thought I was going to leave that place again, but you saved me, and you brought me clothes and fed me good food, and I'm not going to forget it. I promise. Speed Demon says, we would have done it for anyone. Queen says, I didn't think people as good as you guys existed. Everyone in my life has hurt me, or tortured me, or done experiments on me, but you guys treat me like a person. Everyone must love you. Songbird says, yeah, about that. We need to have a chat when we get back to the others. Speed Demon says, on that note, we probably should head back. John Walker's got to be fuming. We've been gone a while. They exit the curry house back into the market, and they begin to move towards the ship. People start to look up into the air around them. Queen, noticing, turns to see what they're looking at, and we see Sentry floating in the air looking down at them. Queen says, oh, is he another one of your friends? Songbird says, who? Queen says, him, the flying guy. Sentry floats down into the market and lands on the floor. People around him begin to back up nervously as they stare. Songbird and Queen both look confused, but Speed Demon, he looks mortified. Sentry spots him and sneers. So it's true. Even you betrayed her, James. Speed Demon says, Sentry, I thought you were dead. Sentry says, no, I retired. I thought I could trust the others to protect her. Clearly I was wrong. Songbird asks, who is he? Speed Demon whispers to her quickly, desperately. One of the power brokers. Dangerous. Very dangerous. Take Queen and go. Have them call into my earpiece when you get there, and be fast. Songbird says, but what about you? He says, I'll be fine. I'm faster than him. I'll keep him busy. Buy you time. Go, now. Songbird doesn't hesitate. She grabs Queen's arm and moves away. Queen looks back, confused, frightened. She says, what's going on? What about James? Songbird says, he'll be fine. We have to go. Sentry watches the other two leaves and smiles. He turns his attention back to Speed Demon. You won't keep them safe. When I'm finished with you, I'm gonna hunt down all the Thunderbolts and slaughter them. Help me understand, James. Why did you do it? Do what? He asks. Sentry says, don't play dumb. I've known you for a long time. I remember the day she found you rotting away in that prison cell. You swore to be her protector, and yet you helped kill her. Speed Demon says, if you think I'll fall to my knees and apologize for what I did, I won't. She deserved it. The power broker wasn't the person you think she was. Sentry says, she was a saint. Sure, she had her flaws, but she was a good person doing her best to make the world better than she found it. She saved me from a life of hell, just like she saved you from a prison cell. She gave us the power to fight back against the cruelty of this world. Speed Demon says, she made us slaves, held my family hostage, and made me do what she wanted. She was a monster. Sentry says, liar! Sentry fires lasers from his eyes, and Speed Demon zips away, dodging the attack. We see him wrap around a stall, then speed towards Sentry. He tries to punch him, slamming his fist into his face, but it does nothing. Sentry doesn't even react. We can see Speed Demon kind of like wipe off his hand like it hurt. Sentry says, all you do is spit lies like venom. Speed Demon says, I don't know how you never saw it. Guess you never peeked behind the curtain. Sooner or later, you're going to realize what she was. You're on the wrong side. Sentry says, I will continue her work. I will make the world a better place, just like she would have wanted. Not that you'll be alive to see it. Speed Demon says, I wouldn't be too sure. I'm pretty quick. Sentry flies at him, and Speed Demon begins to run towards the emptying markets. Sentry zooms overhead, much slower than Speed Demon, but able to keep up. We can tell Speed Demon is letting him follow, keeping his attention for as long as he can. Speed Demon taps his ear and says, Walker, do you read me? U.S. Agent says, yes, I read you. You guys have been gone a while. What's wrong? Speed Demon says, we're in serious fucking trouble. One of the power broker's supers is here. I think he got a tracker on the ship. Find it, and as soon as Songbird gets back, take off. I'll catch up later. U.S. Agent says, shit. We see U.S. Agent jump out of the back of the ship. He runs by Ghost. She looks to the left and sees an echo of herself running. The echo is lasered in half and falls into two pieces. Another version of her we see get crushed, her head exploding. Ghost says, he's coming. We see U.S. Agent running around the hull of the ship until he finds a small blinking red device. He smashes it with his shield. U.S. Agent yells, Dallas, warm up the engines. Get this thing ready to go airborne as soon as possible. We cut to Songbird and Queen. They're running through the market in the middle of crowds of people fleeing for their lives. In the background, we can see Sentry attacking Speed Demon. He fires lasers from his eyes into the stalls. Queen has her eyes shut tight, even as she runs. Songbird says, Queen, you fly, right? Queen doesn't reply. Songbird says, Queen. We see her eyes moving beneath her eyelids. Songbird puts a hand on her shoulder, and her eyes shoot open. Queen says, what? Songbird says, what are you doing? Queen says, I'm helping James. I won't just leave him. Songbird says, you can fly, right? Queen says, yes, with the wings. Songbird says, then let's fly. She forms wings from the glowing back of her suit. A little thing I'm going to mention here is I decided to give Songbird a slight costume upgrade. I think it'd be cool if she had like lights or neon stuff embedded into her suit so that she can always use her light manipulation powers without having to worry about being in a dark location. Just makes sense logistically, and I think would give the suit a good like design look to it. Songbird begins to levitate off the floor. Queen unfolds a set of dragonfly-like wings and begins to hover. She says, I'm going to help James again. Songbird says, we can't turn back. Queen says, I don't need to. I have the insects to help me. We cut to clouds of flies circling around meat stands and roaches climbing up the trash. They all stop and begin to change direction, swarming towards Sentry. We cut back to Speed Demon. Speed Demon says, would you just listen to me? I'm trying to tell you the truth. Sentry says, I think I've listened enough. Speed Demon says, I have proof. I can show it to you. Sentry launches a laser blast from his eyes as an answer. We see a single fly land on Speed Demon's shoulders. It turns to look at him. Speed Demon says, oh. Suddenly, thousands of insects begin to attack Sentry. They land all over his body and try to bite his skin, but it's no use. They can't get through his flesh. They can't even make a dent. We briefly cut to Queen as she flies next to Songbird. She says, his skin is perfect. The insects can't get a bite on it. It's like it's made of steel. But I can still help. This guy still has to see. The bugs swarm around his eyes. Sentry screams and tries to pull the bugs out of his eyes. He crushes them in mass as we see bug guts spread across his face. We briefly hear Queen scream in pain and hold her hand to her head. More bugs coalesce to replace the destroyed ones, all of them covering Sentry's eyes. Out of desperation, he fires his laser vision from his eyes at random, burning thousands of insects with each touch of the beam. Only he can't see where he's aiming. The laser cuts down towards a crowd of people who are fleeing the battle. Speed Demon zips around and snags the civilians one by one, barely pulling them out of the way before the lasers reach where they are. We'll see that in like slow motion. Queen screams as the laser cuts through a large cloud of insects, then passes out. She begins to plummet from the sky as her wings no longer work. Songbird desperately dives down and catches her just in time to pull her up above the ground. She pulls up, narrowly avoiding a crowd of people, and they begin to fly again. Now she's carrying Queen. The insects around Sentry scatter. His face is covered in bug guts from the smashed insects, but he is unharmed. He looks angry. Speed Demon says, if you keep this up, you're going to get somebody innocent killed. Sentry turns his head to look away. He knows Speed Demon is right, but Speed Demon's made a mistake. He's realized now he should just leave Speed Demon and go for the others. Speed Demon catches on. He thinks on his feet and quickly says, you know, she begged me at the end for her life. Cried like a child. It was pathetic.
Sentry turns back to Speed Demon, his face full of rage. He throws himself at Speed Demon, smashing into the earth. Of course, Speed Demon steps aside, dodging it easily. And at the end, when we were closing in, she said her Sentry would save her. He'll come. She really believed it right up until the end. But you didn't save her, did you? Sentry screams as lasers blast from his eyes. Speed Demon dodges them, and at one point he even slides underneath them, rolling back at full speed. Sentry says, "I'll kill you all!" Speed Demon says, "It's funny. That's what she said right before we killed her." We're going to cut to the helicopter. We see Songbird land with Queen in her arms in a clearing next to the helicopter. They rush into the Quinjet. She lays Queen down in a chair. We see Queen stir. Songbird yells, "We were attacked in the market. James is distracting them, but I don't know how long it'll last." U.S. agent says, "We know. He called us." Ghost desperately runs up to him. "We need to take off now. He's coming. I'm telling you." Her eyes shift back towards the entrance to the Quinjet. In the fields beyond it, we see flickering ghosts, all of them dying in mass. 20 of them, sliced in half, crushed, smashed, ripped apart. All of them die with the word Sentry on their lips, as if in warning. Queen looks around, noticing James isn't there. She says, "What about James?" The Quinjet begins to take off. U.S. agent says, "He'll be fine. He's fast. He told me he'd meet up with us later. Dallas, take us up." We're going to cut to Speed Demon. Speed Demon says, "You know, it was funny. It was so easy to overthrow her. After all, I'd been so close to her for so long. I'd studied her operations. I knew exactly how to do it. And you know, she was really rotten to the core. As evil as they come. She dealt in kids like you know." Sentry yells, "Liar! You don't know what you're talking about. She would have never. It was the very thing she stood against." Speed Demon says, "You really believe that, don't you? You were her enforcer. You cleared the path for her to take control of the operation. She ran all the trafficking in that city, all the guns, all the drugs, all the slaves. Hers, all because of you." Sentry says, "Shut your mouth." He launches a laser blast that Sentry easily dodges again. We can see how frustrated Sentry is becoming. U.S. agent chimes in on Speed Demon's earpiece. "We're clear." Speed Demon says, "Yeah, I think I will shut my mouth. Just had to distract you long enough. You really were wrong about her. So wrong. She truly deserved it, Sentry. She really did." He vanishes in a burst of speed. Sentry seems to snap to his senses. He checks his tracking device and realizes that it's been destroyed. He throws down his tablet in fury. It shatters on the floor in an explosion of glass and metal. Sentry flies up into the air and vanishes. We see the Quinjet touch down. Text on screen says, 150 miles outside Myanmar. They open the hatch and we see Speed Demon standing there. He says, "Took you guys long enough." Queen comes running out of the helicopter. She says, "You're okay." She wraps Speed Demon up in a hug. Speed Demon says, "Of course. That guy couldn't put a finger on me." Dallas says, "You did good. Saved our asses." Speed Demon says, "Maybe. I may have poked the bear a bit to do it. I had to get him angry to keep his attention on me." U.S. agent says, "We got away. Without the tracker, he won't be able to find us again." Speed Demon says, "I wouldn't be too sure about that. Look, this guy is legit dangerous. I don't have the slightest idea how to even begin to hurt him. And he won't stop hunting us. Never." U.S. agent says, "This guy's no different than Ross. As long as we keep moving, he'll be no problem for us." Speed Demon says, "You don't get it. This guy was her final, perfect project. Project Sentry was the power broker's life work. She talked about it all the time. And this guy has a cocktail of 10 stolen superpowers in his blood. Bulletproof skin, flight, regeneration, super strength, even stronger than yours. He can fire laser beams from his eyes. Sooner or later, he'll find us. And when he does, someone's going to get hurt." Ghost says, "He's right." Dallas says, "And how would you know?" Ghost says, "They've warned me." Songbird says, "Who?" Ghost says, "Me. Well, myself. A couple of them." Dallas says, "Great. Ava's lost it. What do you want us to do, Speed Demon? How do you think we can stop this guy from following us?" Songbird says, "We have to kill him. I saw him. It's like Speed Demon said. He's dangerous. Sooner or later, he's going to hurt someone." Speed Demon says, "Look, I talked with him. He believes everything she told him. He thinks we're the devils incarnate and that the power broker was like Mother Teresa." Dallas says, "If it's what the team wants, I'm okay with killing him. We've killed worse." Ghost says, "There is no choice. It's kill or be killed. I've seen it. There are no other options." Speed Demon sits down and sighs. "Look,
This guy is a victim. Just like me and Queen. He just doesn't know it yet. I don't want to kill him. In fact, I'd hate it. But we may have no choice. What I say is we should prepare for the worst, but try to avoid it. U.S. Agent says, that sounds like the best option to me. So how do we prepare to kill him? Speed Demon says, yeah, that's the other problem. I don't know if we can. This guy was Power Broker's pride and joy. She combined almost all of the serum she had to make him. From what I heard, she tried it a bunch of times and it always failed. This guy, Sentry, was the one exception. He managed to survive when no one else did. He's tough as nails. Ghost says, he must have a weakness. Everyone does. Speed Demon says, if he did have one, I don't know what it is, and the only person who did is dead with a bullet in her head. Dallas says, not necessarily. We have her files. I'd bet she kept one on him. Songbird said, yeah, but you said we couldn't crack those. Locked up tighter than Fort fucking Knox were your exact words. Dallas says, well, I've given it some thought. The code is tight, damn near perfect. I don't know who the Power Broker found to write it, but they were talented. There's maybe a handful of people in the world who could crack it. It just so happens that I do know one of them, a hacker who could probably do it. U.S. Agent says, great, who is it and where do we find them? Dallas grimaces. That's the part you're not going to like. He's in the raft. We're going to cut back to the city. We see Sentry walk up to a payphone. He rings someone up and starts a conversation that we only hear one side of. I need a favor. Yes, another one. I know I'm asking a lot, but believe me, I can and will pay it back. I need John Walker's home address. There's been some complications. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Alright. Thank you. We're going to cut back to the ship. U.S. Agent says, I'm sorry, did you just say you want to break into the raft? Dallas says, if you want to crack the files, it's probably the only way to do it on such short notice. My contact is locked up in the raft. Songbird says, that place is a fortress. I mean, you'd have to be insane to even try it. Dallas says, I know the way out of the prison better than most. It's doable, especially with her. She gestures to Queen. Queen says, me, how could I help you guys? Dallas begins to type something into the computer. We see a hologram of the raft appear. She moves to the schematics until we see the air vent system. She says, the security system is manned by 2 armed guards. They control everything. With the press of a button, they could shut down the whole facility, put it in lockdown mode. We'd be fucked if that happened. The worst part is, the system is completely enclosed. It's trapped behind several layers of steel and other material. The inside is protected by an automatic weapons system. Even if Ghost was able to phase into the walls, the second she became tangible, she'd be riddled with bullet holes. The one weakness to the system is airflow. The men inside need oxygen. A single vent runs into the building to provide life support to the guards stationed inside the room. It's too small for a human to move through, but if we were able to control insects, we could infiltrate the room, disable the guards, and shut down the weapon system. After that, Ghost could safely phase inside and disable any security systems inside the raft. Queen says, I see. You helped save me from prison, so I'll help you too. Well, my insects will help you. U.S. Agent says, I'm sorry to say it, Dallas, but I think you're making it sound too easy. This is the raft we're talking about. It's the most secure prison in the world. It contains some of the most dangerous people who have ever lived. There have to be at least 30 highly trained guards stationed there at all times. Dallas says, we're the Thunderbolts. We can handle 30 guards. U.S. Agent says, I don't know, Dallas. It seems risky. Speed Demon says, if her guy really can break the security code, then I think it's worth the risk. I can't express just how dangerous this guy is. He'll kill all of us if even given half the chance. Dallas says, you're the boss, Walker. It's your call. U.S. Agent says, it's a big risk, but I guess I just don't see another option. If he's as bad as James says, then we need to know his weaknesses. I think we should do it, but we're going to be careful about it. Dallas says, of course. Alright, let's run through the plan a couple times.
We see the backyard of a suburban home. There's a little kiddie pool and a trampoline, some toys laying around. Suddenly, a pair of feet come into view as Sentry lands in the yard. He pulls out a tape recorder and listens to it. We hear a phone recording of U.S. Agent's call to Ross in the last movie. Ross says, Walker, this better be good news. U.S. Agent says, the power broker is dead. Ross says, what? I told you I wanted him alive. Are the serum samples secure? U.S. Agent says, they are now, but they won't be for long. I'm going to destroy them. Sentry says, Walker, he did it.
You can do this. He deserves it.
He puts away the tape recorder. We watch as he floats towards the sliding glass door and opens it. He enters a kitchen we recognize from the first movie. It's John Walker's house. Sentry looks around and notices a drawing on the fridge. It's a crudely drawn depiction of a Captain America with the words "My Dad" scribbled on top. Sentry frowns. We see flashes of him and his sister drawing with crayons in his childhood house. His face hardens. From behind him, we see Henry, John Walker's son, enter the kitchen. He holds a Captain America action figure. Henry says, "Hello." Sentry says, "Hello." Henry says, "Hey, that's a funny costume. Are you a friend of my dad's?" Sentry says, "I am. I have business with him." Henry says, "So you're a superhero?" Sentry nods and says, "Yes, I am. Your father took something from me. I just stopped by to take it back. Is your mom home?" Henry says, "Yeah, I'll go get her." Sentry says, "Thank you. It'll be good to catch up." The boy runs off. Sentry closes his eyes, preparing himself for what he's about to do. We're going to cut back to the Quinjet. The camera pans over the room, and so we see Speed Demon, Songbird, and Queen sitting together. Queen looks over at Speed Demon and fidgets for a moment. She says, "I lied to you, both of you." Speed Demon looks confused. He says, "You did?" Queen nods, and Speed Demon asks, "About what?" Queen says, "My life. I had a family. A name besides Queen. I even remember seeing the sky as a little girl." Speed Demon says, "That's a good thing. That means you have people waiting for you. People who've been looking for you." Songbird says, "We can help you find them." Queen shakes her head. "No, I can't go back to them now. I couldn't let them see me like this. After what they did to me, my father wouldn't even recognize me. I'd disgust him." Speed Demon says, "I don't know your relationship with your father. I had a real bad one with mine." Songbird says, "Understatement." Speed Demon says, "Okay, it is a bit of an understatement. I hated him. But it doesn't sound like you hate your dad, Queen." She shakes her head. "I don't hate him. He was kind and loving. If anything, I miss him. But I can't. I don't want him to see me like this. To know all the things they did. To know the things I've done. I couldn't bear it." Speed Demon says, "Hey, I did some bad things when I was younger. I used to be terrified that if my mom and my little sister found out the things I did for the power broker, they'd hate me. I was wrong. If I just disappeared like you did, I know they'd never stop worrying about me. You don't have to worry about how you look or the things they did to you. You're beautiful, even with what they did to you. Your father would love you for you. I'd bet my life on it." Queen blushes and looks away nervously. Speed Demon seems to realize what he actually said and blushes too, awkwardly stammering, "You know, that's just what I think." Queen says, "I do have a real name. I don't like to use it because it reminded me of when I was normal. It made me think of my happy days and made me realize that I wasn't happy anymore. And I knew I would never get back to those days, or at least I thought I wouldn't." Dallas suddenly cries out, "We're here! Entering the raft airspace now." Speed Demon says, "Hold that thought. We're up." We see Dallas typing something into the ship's computer. U.S. agent stands next to her. He says, "Are you sure this is going to work?" Dallas says, "Reasonably." "I trust you. Just don't get me killed." Dallas says, "I'll try my best. I used to work for them, so I know damn well their firewall's not nearly as good as the power brokers. Not to mention, I left myself an in. A little bit of malicious code. I do it everywhere I go. Can't be too cautious when you're dealing with Ross. Today's clearance codes should be mine now. Adding them to the ship's registry and altering our own codes. Bingo. We should be cleared for landing. Time to make the call. Oh, and John Walker, we're Alpha Zeta 4. U.S. agent says, "Alright, here we go." He presses a button and dials into a radio frequency. He says, "This is Alpha Zeta 4 requesting permission to land." A crackled voice comes on over the intercom. "I don't remember a landing happening today, but I see you here, Alpha Zeta. Could I get your clearance code?" Dallas slides him a piece of paper. U.S. agent says, "Yeah, I got the code right here. Looks like it's Beta Charlie 5 Omega 3 Beta 7. The voice crackles back in over the radio. "Alright, Alpha Zeta. Everything seems to check out. You're clear to land." U.S. agent says, "Thanks. See you real soon." He clicks the radio off, turns to the rest of the Thunderbolts.
Ladies and gentlemen, gear up. Songbird Ghost, welcome home. Songbird says, I always hated this place. Dallas says, everyone does. That's the idea. We see the Quinjet coming in for a landing. In the distance, we see a dark storm rolling in. The raft slowly rises out from the ocean. Light rain and splashes from waves coat the Thunderbolts as they exit the Quinjet. U.S. Agent says, remember, these guards haven't done anything wrong. We're going non-lethal here. We're not going to leave any widows behind. Speed Demon turns to Ghost. He's talking to you. Speed Demon says it with a laugh. But when he turns to look at her, she seems to be looking around wildly. There's fear in her eyes. Speed Demon says, what's wrong, Ava? She says, this place is a slaughterhouse. We shouldn't be here. We're going to die. You were all for this just a moment ago, he says. Ghost says, I didn't think it would be. I didn't expect this. The camera moves behind her. When it passes to the other side, we can see at least 100 phantom corpses scattering the roof of the raft. They're all ghosts. They flicker like they're phasing. Some are torn apart, others sliced clean in half. Some have their faces burned through by something. Others are just pulverized meat. They flicker and vanish in existence, and new ones appear, dying just the same. Songbird says, he's just got the pre-mission jitters. It happens to the best of us. Remember me on that Hawaiian job a couple months ago? I was a mess. U.S. Agent says, focus up, Thunderbolts. Keep the chatter to a minimum. We're going to do this clean. Old Ross isn't going to know what hit him. We hear the song How Do You Like Me Now by The Heavy play as they enter the raft. We get a team-up shot of the whole group. The large metal doors slide open and a guard is there to meet them. He looks over U.S. Agent and the rest of the Thunderbolts. Oh, fuck. Dallas? Dallas says, sorry for this, Mike. She spins her staff and slaps the side of his head with it. He crumples to the floor. U.S. Agent turns to Queen. You're up. This vent leads directly to the security room. Queen says, all right. She holds out her hand and a purple spider climbs to the top of it. She carefully sets the spider on the wall and it begins to climb up the vent before slipping inside. U.S. Agent says, remember, non-lethal. Queen says, it's a purple prickleback from Wakanda. Their bite isn't lethal, but it paralyzes its prey's muscles almost immediately. The guards won't be able to move for a couple hours. We see the spider climb out of the vents and then slowly work its way down to see a single guard sealed in the room. Queen says, there's only one. Dallas says, they must be slipping. Take him out. Queen nods. The spider lands on the side of the security guard's shoulder and begins to climb up to his neck. It bites him. The security guard screams and tries to slap the spider, but the spider is already moving away. It bites him one last time on the other side of his neck before climbing down and away. The security guard tries to reach for the panic button, but teeters before he can. He falls out of his chair and goes stiff on the floor. Queen says, he's down. Taking out the camera now. We see ants pouring from her pockets. They come up into the vents. We see them exit and begin to chew through the wires connecting the camera on the top of the turret. They bite through, and there's an electrical pop. A few of the ants are fried. We see Queen wince. But the gun seems to shut down. It lowers to the floor and the camera light winks out. Queen says, they did it. The cameras are down. U.S. Agent says, you're sure? Queen says, yes. U.S. Agent says, alright, Ghost, you're up. Ghost nods and phases through the wall. We see her enter the room. She becomes tangible, and the turret doesn't shoot her. She looks down and we see a dead ghost apparition on the floor. It's riddled with bullet holes. Ghost frowns and turns to the computer. She presses a button, and the security door in front of the Thunderbolts pops open. Ghost says, it works. I'll get you guys through. Good work, Ghost, U.S. Agent says. He says, Queen, stay here and guard her. Make sure no one else comes in, and make sure the security system stays offline. Queen nods and takes a seat on the floor. The song, How Do You Like Me Now, picks up even louder. We see the Thunderbolts move from hall to hall. We see some cameos of prisoners locked in the jail cells. Whoever you think it would be fun to get a cameo in there. Maybe some characters that haven't been introduced yet. Just some fun guys. You know, cameos. They are what they are. 7 guards turn the corner armed with guns. U.S. Agent says, Dallas, Songbird, let's make some noise. He holds his shield up and Dallas twirls her metal staff into it. It makes a loud clanging sound. We see Songbird amplify the sound waves into a cannon. The sound waves slam into the oncoming guards, throwing them back into the wall. A few of them try to get back up. We see Speed Demon zip forward and knock them out one by one. He reappears next to the others. Speed Demon says, I swear this gets easier every time. We get a bit more of an action scene as they dispatch a few more guards in more conventional ways, fighting, using their weapons, using their powers. I'm not going to waste your time describing all of it. You can kind of use your imagination. I'm sure whatever you imagine will be cooler than whatever I come up with. Finally, they arrive to a prison cell near the end of the hall. Dallas approaches it, and the camera pans around, revealing Mach 1. Mach 1 smiles when he sees her. Of everyone I expected to see today, you were not on my list, Dallas Reordain. Guess you're back to being Ross's bootlicker. The U.S. agent and Songbird step into view, and Mark 1 laughs even louder. No shit. You are still rogue, and you broke into the raft. Now you've got some balls. Dallas says, I need something from you. Mach 1 says, everyone always does. I have conditions. I want out of here. Dallas says, that's the idea. She waves to Ghost by pointing to a camera, and his cell door opens up. She shows him a laptop. She tries to open a sealed file on Project Sentry, and it fails. It requires a long password. Dallas says, can you hack it? Mach 1 takes the laptop and starts to look through it. Wow, this is some serious shit. What is this, Chinese government, Korea, Japan? This thing's locked up tighter than Fort Knox. Dallas says, it's from a drug smuggler called the Power Broker. We need the information on that file, and we need it quickly. Mach 1 looks through it some more. Yeah, I can break this. It's good, but it's not good enough. But I have demands. Dallas says, you're in no position to argue. Mach 1 says, I think I am. As you said, you need the information on this file. Clearly, I'm the only one who can get it, or you wouldn't have gone through the trouble of breaking into the fucking raft. Dallas says, touche. Mach 1 says, I want out, but I also want a favor. U.S. agent says, what sort of favor? Mach 1 says, hey, how about that? Captain America talks. U.S. agent scowls. Mach 1 says, yeah, a favor. Nothing big. There's another prisoner here who goes by the name Atlas. I want him out. I owe him a favor, and I always pay my debts. Dallas says, where is he? Mach 1 says, C block, I think. Cell 22, maybe. Ross moves us around sometimes. Dallas says, Speed Demon, check it. Speed Demon says, on it. He vanishes, then reappears after 20 seconds. He says, big guy, broad shoulders. Mach 1 says, probably. Yeah, he's there. Mach 1 says, one more thing. I'll need my suit to hack the files. They've got it sealed in the armory. Dallas says, right. We'll make our way there after we break your friend out. You have a deal, but don't try to fuck me on this. You'll regret it, I promise. Mach 1 says, wouldn't dream of it. You guys have a reputation. The Thunderbolts. This shit right here is going to piss Ross off, Dallas says, that's kind of the idea. We see them move through the raft, fighting guards until they reach C block. Mach 1 leads them to a cell. Inside, we get the first reveal of Atlas. Big guy, looks like his comic book version minus the suit. Atlas says, look, Warden, I don't know what you think I did this time, but I've been good. His eyes twitches over and he sees the Thunderbolts. Atlas lets out a belly laugh. Oh, that's good. The Thunderbolts. I love you guys. Mostly because Ross hates you. Mach-X steps out from behind Speed Demon, and Atlas's face turns to one of confusion. What the hell are you doing with the Thunderbolts? Mach 1 says, it's a jailbreak, Atlas. Atlas says, no, you're kidding. Mach 1 says, no jokes here. I seem to recall owing you a favor. He opens the cell door. Mach 1 says, debt repaid. Atlas laughs and runs over. He wraps Mach 1 in a big hug. I was gonna go crazy in here. Now I owe you a debt. Mach 1 says, no more debts. That was the point of this whole thing. Dallas clears her throats. She says, we got a date with Ross's office. Mach 1 says, best date I'll ever go on. Atlas says, don't tell me you're here to kidnap Ross. U.S. agent says, not today, big guy. Good old Thunderbolt Ross is on his way to a tropical vacation with his family as we speak. Atlas says, well, I think you may have just ruined it. Dallas says, he keeps the door to his armory sealed in his office. The paranoid bastard didn't want this exact thing happening without him knowing. Mach 1 needs his stuff, so we need to get into Ross's office. We're going to see the Thunderbolts moving through the halls again. Two guards step out. Atlas laughs with joy and runs forward. He grows even larger, his muscles ripping through his shirt, and he smashes a fist into the first guard, sending him flying into a wall. The second one turns to shoot him, and he miraculously shrinks to a much skinnier body. He moves supernaturally quick, dodging the gunfire before growing large again and smashing an uppercut into him. Both guards are down. Atlas says, "God, I miss this." Songbird leads in the Speed Demon and whispers, "Hey, he's fast. You got some competition." Speed Demon says, "What? No. I'm faster. Yeah, faster." U.S. Agent kicks the door to the office down. And we see a nice office with pictures of Ross in military uniform hanging on the walls. There's also an American flag hanging over his large oak desk. A giant bolt door fills up the left wall of the room. U.S. Agent says, "Right. Speed Demon, crack that safe. The rest of you, make yourselves at home." Speed Demon says out loud, "I'll crack that safe because I'm the fastest here." He gives Songbird a sarcastic glance. "Obviously," U.S. Agent says. "Hurry up, though. I don't know how much time we'll have before they scramble what's left of the Avengers or someone else to come defend the prison." Speed Demon says, "Right, of course." He zips over to the vault door and begins trying combinations so fast we can barely see what's happening. We see Mach 1 slowly move over to Ross's desk. He opens up one of his drawers, then jumps on top of the desk. He pulls down his prison jumpsuit. Songbird asks, "What are you doing?" Mach 1 says, "What does it look like? I'm taking a shit in Ross's desk. Gonna leave him a little steaming surprise." Atlas laughs. "Ross will hate that. Everyone hates shit." Dallas says, "You two are animals." Mach 1 shrugs. Speed Demon says, "Got it." The safe opens, revealing a room filled with supervillain paraphernalia and suits. Mach 1 says, "You lot have just opened the motherlode. I think I'm in love." U.S. Agent says, "Don't touch anything there. Just find your suits so we can get out of here." Mach 1 says, "Aye, aye, Captain," and sarcastically salutes him. We're going to cut to Walker's house. Henry says, "See, Mom? I told you he was real. A real superhero." He drags his mother into the kitchen where Sentry stands. A stranger in her house. When she sees him, she goes rigid. Walker's wife says, "Henry, get behind me." Sentry says, "You should do what she says." Henry looks to his mother nervously. He's read the tension in the room. He carefully slides behind her, peering out from behind her. Walker's wife says, "Who are you?" Sentry says, "I am Sentry. Your husband owes me a debt. I've come to collect." There's a certain malice in his voice. Walker's wife says, "Let the boy go." Sentry says, "You can relax. I thought I'd come to kill you both as revenge. Figured that would drag your husband out of hiding. Finally get him to come face me. But I think I've thought of a better way to get what I want. I'll need something from you, though." Walker's wife says, "What?" Sentry says, "I need you to call your husband. I know you can do it." She says, "I can't. He's on the run. I don't know where he is." Sentry says, "I know that's a lie, and an unconvincing one at that. I will kill the boy. Don't try me." Henry ducks behind his mother even tighter now. He's shaking. Walker's wife says, "He's just a kid. Don't hurt him, please." Sentry says, "Call your husband, and I won't. I'd simply like to talk to him. No harm will come to you." Walker's wife says, "I don't know how to call him. I told you." Sentry smashes his hand down, and a table shatters in front of him. "He took something from me, a woman who meant a great deal to me. I came here to do the same, and I'm looking for any reason not to do what I think I should. Call him now." Walker's wife says, "All right." She picks up the phone and dials a phone number. We're going to cut to the raft. U.S. Agent picks up the phone. "Carrie, you're not supposed to call this number." Walker's wife says, "John." U.S. Agent says, "Is everything okay? You sound scared." Sentry says, "Tell him to tell you where he is right now, or I will kill his son." Walker's wife says, "There's a man here. He's got powers." Walker goes rigid. "What does he look like?" Walker's wife says, "Asian, long blonde hair. He's big." U.S. Agent says, "Take Henry and hide. Do not let him find you." Walker's wife says, "He already did. He says he's going to hurt us unless you tell him where you are." Sentry says, "Give me the phone." He holds his hand out. Walker's wife hands him the phone. The U.S. Agent says, "Don't hurt them. They're innocent in this." Sentry says, "So was the power broker. A kind soul. I came here because I wanted to take something from you, so that you would know what it felt like to watch powerless as someone takes your loved one." U.S. Agent says, "Please, don't." Sentry says, but it wouldn't be right. I don't want to be like you, so I'm giving you a choice. Tell me where you are right now, or I will kill them both. U.S. Agent stops where he stands. A choice is presented to him. He briefly looks over the Thunderbolts, but doesn't hesitate. The raft. I'm at the raft. Sentry says, the prison. Why? U.S. Agent says, does it matter? Sentry says, no, I guess it doesn't. I'm coming. If you're not there when I arrived, I will find your family again, and I will make their dead slow. It's time we settled this, Walker. Man to man. U.S. Agent says, yeah, I think it is. Sentry smashes the phone to pieces. He flies out of the house. We see U.S. Agent turn to the others. Mach 1 and Atlas are exiting the vault in their costumes. U.S. Agent says, it's time to go. Double time. Dallas's face becomes confused. Dallas says, they don't even know we're here. We've got the run of the place for at least a few hours. I thought I'd try to pull some information off Ross's computer. U.S. Agent says, Dallas, we have to go. Her face becomes hard. Who was that on your phone? U.S. Agent says, it doesn't matter. We have to go. Dallas nods and says, right. You're the leader. Let's go. Mach 1 says, I'm all for leaving. It's gonna be good to get out of this prison. The food here fucking sucked. Atlas says, it was terrible. Dallas says, you can have all the food you want once you've upheld your end of the bargain. Mach 1 says, relax, I'm good for it. No one can keep me out of that file, not even the power broker. We see them leaving the raft. They stop by the security center, where we see Queen is still sitting in front of the glass window of the security room. Dallas says, Ghost, time to go. Ghost steps through the wall and joins them. Alright, you should know. Something bad is coming. Dallas says, you've been saying things like that. I'm a bit worried about you, Ava. I've just been seeing you staring off at nothing. Ghost says, not nothing. I'm seeing things, Dallas, and I think these things are trying to warn me. Dallas says, right. We'll talk about this on the Quinjet. I want you to tell me what you've been seeing there. Ghost nods. We see them exit the raft onto the surface of the building. It's raining hard now. We see lightning flashing in the distance. They begin to run to the Quinjet. Everyone but Dallas and U.S. Agent enter quickly. Dallas starts to enter, then turns around. U.S. Agent is just standing there. U.S. Agent says, you need to go now. Use Mach 1 and break the broker's computer. And break the broker's computer file. Get me what's in that file so I can kill him. Dallas asks, kill who? Suddenly, Sentry lands on the deck of the raft. He dents the steel where he lands. Dallas says, you called him. She sounds betrayed. U.S. Agent says, I didn't have a choice. He got to my family. Dallas says, fuck. U.S. Agent says, I've got my earpiece. Get me the data, Dallas. I can win. Dallas says, you better. I'm gonna get it to you. Just survive long enough. U.S. Agent says, this guy isn't so bad. I've taken worse. Dallas nods her head and runs onto the Quinjet. It starts to lift off as lightning strikes in the distance. U.S. Agent turns to face Sentry. Sentry says, you actually waited. I'm surprised. I thought I was going to have to hunt you down again. U.S. Agent says, you touched my family. I'm not going to run from that. Sentry says, so, you have a shred of honor after all. I'm surprised by you again. U.S. Agent tightens the shield on his arm. He takes a deep breath and clenches and unclenches his fist. You know, normally, I try to reason with you. Tell you the power broker was vile. But I don't see the point. You threatened my son, so I'm going to kill you. Sentry says, you can try. We're going to cut to the inside of the Quinjet. Dallas shoves the laptop into Mach 1's hands. Hack it. Mach 1 says, what? Now? Here? In the air? Dallas says, yes, damn it, and make it fast. I don't know how much time we're going to have. Mach 1 says, fine. He takes the computer and begins to type through the files. You weren't kidding. This is some serious shit. Tell me you can do it, Dallas says. Mach 1 says, of course. I can do anything, baby. We're going to cut to the raft. U.S. Agent and Sentry are fighting. They're both fresh in the fight and equally quick. U.S. Agent dodges a lot of Sentry's attacks and vice versa. They start to hit each other with their fists. U.S. Agent's punches don't seem to have much of an effect. However, Sentry hits U.S. Agent and you can tell he feels it. They fight for a while, but at this point the fight's kind of uneventful. There's sort of a slugfest. Back on the Quinjet, Mach 1 says, I got it! It works! We can see all the files pulled up on the computer. Everything on Project Sentry. Dallas says, give it to me. She begins to look through the file. As she does, the camera moves towards Ghost, who sits in the corner. We see a few phantoms of herself lounging around the ship. One of them is suddenly pulled out of the side of the ship by an arm ripping through the side of the hull. Another begins to panic as the phantom ship is ripped in two. She falls and through the floor as if it wasn't there. Ghost murmurs to herself, "It won't work. It won't work." We're going to cut back to the raft. U.S. agent takes a punch to the face, and it knocks one of his teeth out. He's bruised and bloody now. In retaliation, he punches Sentry in the face. Sentry reacts, but barely. U.S. agent isn't done. He twirls his shield and smashes it across Sentry's face. A small trickle of blood runs down Sentry's forehead. The vibranium was strong enough to cut his skin. Sentry reaches up and touches the wound. He looks almost surprised. It's been so long since he's felt pain. Then he snarls, "You just won't die!" U.S. agent says, "Die? No. I can do this all day. Like I said, you threatened my family. I'm not going to let you walk away from this fight alive." They begin to fight some more. We cut to the Quinjet. We see Dallas looking through the files. She pulls one up that says contingencies. We hear the voice of the power broker scientist. Project Sentry is truly remarkable. Its capabilities are beyond what even we imagined. It seems the mixing of powers into a cocktail actually amplified their effects on the human body. His skin is even more invulnerable than we could have possibly hoped for. His strength far surpasses anyone else who's taken Project Tarantula. Even his ocular manipulation surpasses the original sample specimen. Power Broker decided it was prudent to look for certain vulnerabilities within the project. Our concern is that if it ever goes to mass market, we'd have no way to protect ourselves against our own product. Our results were less than satisfactory. It cuts to footage of young Sentry tied to a table. They sedate him with gas. The gas will keep him at bay for a short period of time. However, the next part is what is prudent to our research. They hold up a steel scalpel and try to cut his skin. It breaks. Next, they pull out a small scalpel made of vibranium and slice his arm open. It makes a small cut. As you can see, his skin is only vulnerable to the cut of vibranium, which is the hardest metallic substance on Earth. Everything else simply doesn't have an effect. Some testing shows that his internal organs do not have the same strength of his skin. However, attempts to damage the tissue proved unsubstantial. His self-regeneration included in the cocktail seems to mitigate any damage we can inflict anywhere but his skin. To tell you the truth, I think Project Sentry might make one invulnerable to death. Me and the Power Broker made the decision to disband our research on the project. We think it is too dangerous to our operation to ever be allowed to escape the lab. Needless to say, our efforts to find a way to destroy Project Sentry specimens have been fruitless. It seems to me the only way one could conceivably do it would be to destroy the brain instantaneously. But given his invulnerable skin, I do not believe this is a possibility. The video ends. We see Dallas slump down in her chair. "Oh God," she says. We see Sentry pull back from the fight. He's got a few cuts across his body. U.S. agent half falls to a knee trying to catch his breath. He's torn up, bloodied. He clearly looks worse than Sentry. Dallas comes into his ear calm. "John, do you hear me?" U.S. agent says, "Yeah, tell me you got something. This bastard's tough." Dallas says, "John, listen to me. You have to run. We got into the files, and they think he's unkillable." U.S. agent says, "I see. Thank you, Dallas, for everything." Dallas says, "John, you have to run." U.S. agent says, "And go where, Dallas?" "No, I'm fighting this out, because I think you're wrong. He's got a weak spot. I can feel it." Dallas says, "You bastard, you cannot win this. Listen to me, please." U.S. agent says, "They're yours now. The Thunderbolts. Do some good for me, and let Henry know that I'm sorry, that I did it for him." He starts to cry. Dallas says, "Don't you fucking dare." U.S. agent pulls the earpiece out of his ear and smashes it. We see Dallas on the airplane scream. She throws the laptop into the side of the helicopter and it explodes into pieces. Mach 1 says, "Bad news, I take it." Dallas says, "Shut up." We're going to cut to the raft. We see U.S. agent and Sentry just staring each other down. Both of them are resting from the fight. U.S. agent stands tall, tightening the shield on his arm. There's a bit of blood sprinkled on it. U.S. agent says, "Is that all you have? The way Speed Demon talked about you, I expected more." Sentry stands, then flies at U.S. agent with all his full speed. U.S. agent throws up his shield to block the attack. Sentry slams into it, and U.S. agent is thrown back. He gets up to his knees, using the shield to slow his momentum to a stop. He holds up his shield just as lightning strikes. We can see a large fist implant into vibranium. Sentry is strong enough to dent vibranium. Sentry says, "You're the worst of them all. You parade around like some moral man. You wear the shield and colors of a hero, but you can't hide the blood that stains that costume." U.S. agent wipes away the blood running from his nose and mouth. He says, "I never tried to hide it. Never. I've taken lives, but so have you. You shouldn't throw rocks, glass houses, and all that." Sentry says, "I only kill men who deserve it, unlike you." U.S. agent says, "Funny. I would have said the same thing." The two men begin circling each other. Sentry says, "You killed the broker. You murdered her in cold blood. I heard the recording." U.S. agent says, "She was the worst of them. For all your moral posturing, I don't know how you never saw it." Sentry says, "So all of you are sticking to that lie. You think it'll clear your conscience? She was a hero, unlike you, and your band of criminals. Your own country denounced you. The people of your country hate you. You have nothing. You are nothing." Lightning strikes, illuminating U.S. agent's face. It's a mask of rage. U.S. agent says, "Shut up and fight." He runs towards Sentry and throws a punch. Sentry dodges, but U.S. agent knew that he would. He moves his shield up and smacks Sentry in the stomach. Sentry fires his laser vision, and U.S. agent catches it on the end of his shield. Lasers refract everywhere, forming a superheated ball of energy. It mimics that shot of Captain America and Iron Man fighting in Civil War. The Iron Man sort of blasts Captain America's shield. U.S. agent kicks Sentry's leg with all of his strength, sending him down to his knees. Lightning strikes again, illuminating the fight as they brawl. Sentry catches U.S. agent in the gut with a punch. He follows it up with a punch to U.S. agent's jaw. U.S. agent is staggered. He tries to recover with an attack of his own. He throws a haymaker that connects with Sentry's face. However, Sentry doesn't even react. He reaches up and grabs U.S. agent's hand and holds it tight. With his other hand, he grabs U.S. agent's throat. He begins to levitate off the ground. Lightning strikes again. U.S. agent begins to bash his shield into Sentry over and over again. We can see blood from a few cuts, but Sentry doesn't even seem to care. He squeezes harder. Sentry says, "I don't know how someone as pathetic as you could have taken a life as vibrant as hers." U.S. agent continues to try to free himself. He slams his shield over and over again. Sentry says, "You might think your friends are free, that your sacrifice will mean something. I left another tracker when I landed. They're doomed. I'll kill them all." U.S. agent's punches are growing weaker as Sentry chokes him. Lightning strikes again, and we get a wide shot of Sentry floating in the air holding U.S. agent. It's illuminated by the lightning. Sort of a connection to the Justice Like Lightning thing, you know, the Thunderbolts. It's a good little moment. Sentry says, "I want you to know that after you die, I'm going to kill your team. I'm going to rip them to pieces, all because of you, because you had to destroy what was good." U.S. agent is barely able to croak out words. U.S. agent says, "Don't know her." His eyes are full of panic and bloodshot now. He tries one more time to bash Sentry, but he's too weak to even lift the shield. He whispers, "David," thinking of his son. We cut to the ground of the raft. Lightning strikes in the distance again. We hear something clatter to the floor, metal on metal. Lightning strikes, and we see U.S. agent's shield filling the foreground of the shot. Blood is splattered across it. Darkness envelops the shot again. Something else falls. Lightning strikes, and we see U.S. agent's body. His eyes are dead, and his face is purple and bloodshot. The camera slowly pans back, and we see Sentry land next to U.S. agent's corpse. He laughs to himself. I did it. I killed your murderer. And I'll get the rest of them too. I'll kill them all. And it'll be okay. He slowly bends over and picks up the shield. He studies it. Lightning strikes again. He says, "You never deserved this." He turns to the distance where we can see the Quinjet trying to escape in the storm. He's going to have his revenge on the left of them. He tightens the shield on his arm and flies off. And that's the end of part 2.
This is super interesting. I've just received this letter. And, you know, this letter, it says here that I did the funny again. Oh my god, I got away with it again. I did the funny. Ha 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 ha. I enjoy killing your characters. What does that even mean? Who wrote this? Okay, whatever. Yeah, I did the funny again. Alright, stop writing me letters about it. I'm getting really upset with this parasocial thing that's starting to develop between me and you, amorphous viewer. Let's stop that nip that in the bud now. Also, part 3 should be coming out sooner than this part, I think. I'm not going to go dormant for 3 more months. Not this time. But If you're looking for something to do in the meantime, writing contest. I started one. If you haven't seen that video, you can go look on my channel. It's there. If you haven't seen the Making the Thai Chili Sauce video, I talked some more about some of the additional prizes to that contest. So if you're in the contest and haven't seen that yet, I recommend it. But the update I promised at the beginning of the video is this. We decided to extend the contest an extra month. The reasoning being, basically, we realized that this is a contest for new writers or adapt writers, everyone, but some new writers might feel pressured to finish a script in 2 months instead of 3, or some amount of time. So we decided to just add an extra month because we're still experimenting with this. If y'all really hate that, let me know in the comments and we'll consider changing it. But for right now, unless I post an additional update, we're going to add an extra month to the contest. So make a note of that. Do whatever you guys got to do. That's it. That's all I have to say. I'm going to go back to my room to play video games. I'm not in your closet. I'm not there. Stop suggesting that. I'm serious, all right? It hurts me when you suggest that I've been hiding in your closet for several months instead of that story about the bus I told, all right? That's not true. I'm not there. I'm not homeless or making a home in your closet. So that's the end of the video. What are you talking about? Hello, I'm Bjorn. And welcome back to the Thunderbolts. Today we're doing Act 3, and currently I'm in a place you don't have to worry about, man. Nothing. Don't worry about it. We're just in a place, you know. Well, it's the green screen. There's nothing else going on here, man. What are you talking about, man? And let's just go into the Thunderbolts Act 3, man. Thunderbolts 2 Act 3. If you haven't seen the first movie or Acts 1 and 2 of this one, what are you doing here? Go back and watch those right now, young man. I'm very disappointed in you. But also like and subscribe before you leave. Please. Thank you. It helps us tremendously. Alright, let's go into it.
We're going to pick up right where we left off. We see Dallas sitting in the Quinjet. Her head is in her hands. She has the ship set to autopilot. Songbird asks the obvious question they're all wondering. What happened? Dallas says, Walker is going to fight him anyway. Speed Demon says, God, Sentry will kill him. Dallas says, he said he thought he had a chance. Speed Demon says, yeah, maybe he does. But he sounds skeptical. Dallas says, he's the best fighter I know. I think he can do it. The entire Quinjet falls silent. No one wants to say what they all know. U.S. Agent isn't coming back from that fight. We see Mach 1 approach the control panel in the front of the ship. He looks it over and smiles. This is a pretty badass setup, he says. No one says anything in reply. We see Mach 1 turn and look at the radar. He frowns. Dallas, we've got a bogey approaching at rapid speed. Really rapid. What is that? Dallas says, what? That's impossible. No one will be flying to intercept in a storm like that. She's cut off as Speed Demon says, Sentry! Oh God, he found us! Brace! He yells. The camera moves outside the Quinjet and we see Sentry flying towards the aircraft at incredible speed. His hair is drenched by the rain. He looks down at U.S. Agent's shield in his hand. Then he throws it. The shield twirls in the air at incredible speed and slams into the side of the Quinjet, leaving a massive gash in the metal before slamming into one of the engines. The ship begins to plummet down towards the ocean. Dallas pulls up desperately on the steering wheel. The ship begins to slowly lift up, but it's still crashing. We can see stuff being sucked out into the air through the large hole in the ship. Ghost looks over and sees an echo of herself get sliced in half by lasers, right where Atlas is standing. She quickly unbuckles herself and dives as the ship lists. She's able to knock Atlas aside. Just as she does, 2 lasers slice through the side of the ship, barely missing the both of them. The ship begins to slice into 2 even pieces and begins to plummet straight down. Dallas screams, "We're gonna crash!" Songbird says no. She runs and dives out the hole made by the laser beams and forms lasers on her back. She pulls a flare from her belt and lights it. She creates a massive hand of hard light and catches the ship, slowing its crash. Lightning strikes in the distance and we can see a small tropical island below them. Songbird screams with the effort as she tries to slow the ship. It breaks through her first hard light construct and she forms another one and begins to slow the ship again. Suddenly we see Mach 1 appear next to her. He grabs the bottom of the ship and activates the thrusters in his legs. The ship slowly begins to stop its plummet. Mach 1 says, "We got this." Suddenly, Sentry slams into him. The two of them spiral into the air, off into the storm where we can't see them. The ship begins to drop again. Songbird is still trying to hold it, but it's not enough. Inside the ship, we can see the Thunderbolts that can't fly, desperately holding on for their lives. Atlas says, "We're gonna die here. Why'd you take me from the prison? I had a good thing going there." Speed Demon says, "Calm down, we're gonna be fine." Queen looks at him and says, "I can help them." She unfolds her wings and starts to head towards the torn hole in the ship. Speed Demon catches her arm. "Don't! You have no way to attack, he'll just kill you." Queen says, "I won't do nothing. They need my help." She pulls her arm free and dives into the hole in the side of the Quinjet as her wings unfold. She's caught in the wind and twirls towards the fight. We cut back to Mach 1 and Sentry spiraling through the air. Mach 1 manages to free his hand and launches a laser blast into Sentry. Sentry's blinded by it and lets go of Mach 1. Mach 1 kind of spirals back and then regains control of his suit. He says, "My turn, dickhead." A couple of small rockets launch out of the back of his suit. They slam into Sentry, exploding into a puff of fire. As the fire dissipates, we can see Sentry is unharmed. Mach 1 looks baffled. "The fuck are you?" he says. Sentry says, "I am Sentry." He flies forward and grabs Mach 1. Using all of his strength, he rips Mach 1 into 2 pieces. Blood and guts fly everywhere. Recreating this panel, which is a badass panel, by the way. That panel was so hard. I saw that and I was like, that's going in the movie. Rip in peace for Mach 1. Gone, but kind of forgotten. He wasn't in this one for long. Sorry, guys. His face now covered in blood. Sentry turns his attention back to Songbird. He blasts his laser vision towards her. She sees it coming just in time and forms a wall of hard light. When she does, her other hard light construct falls, and the ship plummets back towards the ground. Songbird forms a giant fist of hard light and slams it into Sentry as he flies towards her. She tries to form another hand to grab the hard light construct to catch the Quinjet, but Sentry recovers from her previous attack and slams into her before she can catch the ship. It begins to plummet towards the island. This time, there's no saving it. Songbird yells, "No!" as the ship falls. Sentry says, "You can't save them now. No one can." Songbird says, "Shut up!" She amplifies the words into one of her screams. The sound waves slam into Sentry. He staggers back, dropping Songbird. We see a small trickle of blood run from his nose. The sound waves hurt him. Songbird is too distracted to notice. Now that she's free, her full attention is back on the falling jet. She dives down with her wings unfolded, trying to catch it, but it's already too far gone. We see the inside of the Quinjet. Dallas is holding on for dear life as the ship plummets. We see Atlas grow as large as he can and brace for impact. Ghost phases. We see pieces of rubble and debris from inside the ship pass right through her, as though she were a ghost. In all the chaos, we see Speed Demon begin to run as fast as he can. Time slows as we get like a bullet time sort of thing. Slow motion. Speed Demon wraps around the inside of the Quinjet, running along the floor, which is now upside down, as it twists in the air. Out of the torn hull, we can see the ground growing closer. Slowly, however, because he's moving so quickly. He moves around floating pieces of glass and metal until he reaches Dallas. He grabs her and pulls her along at super speed. He pulls her until they reach the edge of the Quinjet. Come on, he says. The ground is so close, but not close enough. Moments before the ship is going to impact, Speed Demon jumps. He presses off a piece of floating rubble in the air and rolls onto the sand. Dallas hits the sand too, and they roll for about 15 feet. Behind them, we see the Quinjet explode into the beach in a ball of fire. We see Atlas crawl free from the rubble. His hands are partly on fire, and he begins to roll back and forth in the sand. He's bloodied and burnt, and collapses into the sand, passing out. Dallas opens her eyes and looks around. We can see a small amount of blood on her face from a head injury in the crash. Dallas says, "What happened?" Speed Demon says, "Ship crashed, but I got you out." Her eyes look to the burning pile of rubble that is the ship, and we see the bloody shield embedded in the engine. She begins to cry as her face turns to rage. Then she accepts it. He's dead. Speed Demon says, "I'm sorry." We're going to cut back to the Songbird fight. She takes a few hits but blocks many of Sentry's attacks and lasers with her hard light. Suddenly Queen appears and flies at Sentry. She punches him across the face, but it does nothing. She falls in line next to Songbird for a second, hovering in the air. Songbird says, "That won't work. He's too tough." Queen says, "I'm not trying to hurt him." Not directly. Queen flies off and dives at Sentry once more, hitting him and flying away. Over and over again she does it. We can see it's frustrating Sentry as he tries to catch her, but she's too quick. Then we see spiders begin to climb across Sentry's face. She'd been delivering spiders onto his body, using her fists as a transport vehicle, basically. Kind of a neat use of her power. Sentry begins to swat at them as they begin to run webs across his face, blocking his eyesight. He swats and pulls, trying to grab them, but they're too quick, moving around. And every time he hits himself, he kind of hurts himself. He manages to kill a lot of the spiders, so Queen tries coming back in for another hit. But Sentry is ready this time. He tries to hit her, but she sees the attack coming and is able to dodge, just barely. She starts to fly away as Sentry chases her. Queen dives and darts as Sentry grows closer. He fires his laser beams, but Queen barrel rolls, folding her wings back for a second, then letting them out again. She avoids the lasers. She continues dodging and weaving in the air for some time. Queen sees a storm cloud and enters, and we lose sight of Sentry. She stops diving around and hovers in the center of the cloud. We can see occasional lightning strikes building in the clouds, lighting the scene occasionally. The beats of her wing move some of the clouds away, leaving a patch of clear area for her. Suddenly, another lightning strikes, and for a moment we can see the silhouette of Sentry in the cloud behind her. Queen desperately looks around, unable to locate him. Suddenly, Sentry barrels out of the cloud cover, smashing into her. He grabs her wings and crushes them, pulverizing them. He holds her up by the neck as lightning strikes, illuminating the sequence. We can see her crippled, shattered wings, barely able to move on their own. Sentry smiles and drops her. We see her try to fly, but her wings are too crippled. She spirals down into the darkness, plummeting towards the ground below. No one to save her. We're going to cut to Speed Demon standing on the ground and standing next to the wreckage, just where we left him off before. He looks up just in time to see Queen falling through the cloud cover, plummeting towards Earth. She's still trying to catch herself, but it's no use. Her wings are shot. Speed Demon says, "Shit!" He speeds towards her, and we see that in fast motion. I'm not going to do slow motion for this. You just see him moving rapidly across the sand. You've seen Speed presented in stuff before. You know what this is like. He barely reaches her in time and catches her falling from the sky. The impact still hurts both him and her, and both of them are sent spiraling to the floor. We see Dallas watching Speed Demon catch Queen when suddenly Sentry lands on the ground in front of her. He looks up and says, "You, Ross's dog. I'm surprised you survived the crash." Dallas says, "You killed John Walker." Sentry says, "And I would do it again." Dallas pulls out her staff and pops it open. This is the staff. I don't know if I mentioned that she has this. I definitely think I did in the first part. It's made of vibranium though, so it's pretty strong stuff. She swings it at Sentry, and he dodges the first blow. But Dallas twirls it back up again in one fluid motion and slams it into his skull. He feels it. Her super strength and the vibranium staff are a deadly combo. We see a small amount of blood run from his mouth. Dallas says, "He had a wife and kid." She hits him again with the staff. "He had a son! How could you, you fucking bastard!" She swings her staff as hard as she can right for Sentry's head, but this time he's ready. He catches it in the air. She tries to pull it free, but his grip is iron tight. His bright yellow eyes turn to look at her. He smiles and bends the vibranium staff like it was putty, snapping it into two pieces. "For what he did," Sentry says. "Killing him like that was too easy. I choked the life from his body, and I'll do the same to you." He slaps Dallas, sending her to the ground. Suddenly Ghost appears, phasing through the ship. Her mask is half shattered, and there's blood running down her face from the crash. Her sword slices towards Sentry's neck and tinks off it like it's metal. Sentry turns to look at her, amused. A flickering echo of Ghost appears right in front of her. It's quickly cut into two pieces. We hear words echo in the air. "Duck! Duck! Get down!" Ghost throws herself down as Sentry's laser beams pass just above her, narrowly missing her. Ghost scrambles back to her feet. 4 echoes flicker off towards her body. They each run in different directions, heading to Sentry, each trying to attack him with a sword. Each of them die horribly. Ghost stands, still confused by what's going on. We see her head and body flicker. Just in front of her, another echo runs forward. It's also hit by a laser beam passing right through its head. Again, Ghost moves aside, just as the real Sentry fires his lasers. Her eyes go wide. She finally realizes they're warning her of the future. The next chunk of the movie is just a fight sequence of Ghost dodging everything Sentry throws at her. We see all these like echoes coming off her, like flickering off her body, and she's able to sort of know what he's doing. I got this idea from a book called Mistborn, which I have shilled likely 1,000,000 times on this channel. There is a metal in that world that gives you superpowers called atium. And what atium does is it allows the user to see what their opponent or themselves will do a few seconds into the future. This is something different from that, but I loosely got the idea from that. It's such a cool power, and it leads to these very fascinating fights in that book, which will soon be a movie, one hopes, that will be popular, one would also hope. But really, this is just another PSA to telling you to read Mistborn, because, oh my god, it's so good, guys. She follows echoes and avoids sure death each time. We can see Sentry becoming aggravated by the fight. Even still, Ghost can't lay a finger on him. Every time she tries, the attacks do nothing. Suddenly, even more echoes explode from Ghost. They all begin to die, and we hear echoing whispers all around her. Run! Must escape! Sure death! No way out! The only way! Have to escape! Again, these are like echoes coming from all different directions. Like you could have the audio engineers kind of go crazy with it. Make it real creepy and sinister. We see a single echo turn away from the fight and run. While all the others die, this one survives. Ghost turns and follows it, fleeing from Sentry. Sentry spots her and says, "Coward!" His eyes glow yellow as he prepares to shoot her in the back with lasers. Then he lurches as something hits him in the back of the head. We see Dallas's broken staff fall to the ground, and Dallas standing back on her feet. There's blood running down her face, but she's alright. We see Atlas stand up next to her, still burned, but ready to fight. He grows larger. Dallas says, "I'm gonna fucking kill you." They begin to sort of go in a fight. Dallas is mostly dodging. She doesn't have her staff anymore, so she's using her fists. But her stupid strength give her some level of impact to Sentry. We see Atlas growing stronger and quicker depending on how big he is. He kind of deftly moves around Sentry. They sort of do like a tag team thing. You've seen this a lot where like two super strong people tag team someone. But it's still, they're no match. Sentry quickly gets the upper hand. He hits Atlas a few times while he's big and then catches him with a horrible uppercut. It sends him flying into the wreckage of the ship. He's down for the count. Dallas keeps up the fight. She dodges a few strikes, and however, Sentry lands a good haymaker on her, which she blocks with her arm. We can see it leaves a massive bruise on her arm. She throws back a wild punch, but misses. Sentry retaliates to her missed hit and hits her hard in the chest. We see Dallas get sent flying back into sand. She rolls a few feet and lands in a crumpled mess with a broken arm. We can see blood running from a very large cut on her head. Sentry starts to approach Dallas again. As he does, he pulls U.S. Agent's vibranium shield out of the side of the ship. It's unmarred except for where his fist mark is embedded in its center. He slowly approaches Dallas, brandishing the shield. He's going to kill her with the very weapon of her friend. We hear Songbird yell, "Stop it!" Sentry turns around and we see Songbird landing behind him. There's a small trickle of blood from her previous fight. Sentry says, "You again. Insects, all of you." Songbird says, "Back off." The words are amplified into a scream. Again, the impact of it seems to hurt Sentry. He staggers back, then flies forward. Songbird builds a hard light wall which catches him, then forms a fist out of it which slams into Sentry. He's sent back again, but it doesn't stop him for long. They continue like this. Again, I'm not really going to harp on fighting too much because without the visual spectacle of it, describing a fight is just sort of like he gets punched and she gets punched and she does this and he does that. But basically it turns into a slugfest, but Songbird is again on the back foot. This guy is Sentry. I mean, he's very hard to kill. He grows closer and closer to her. She tries to scream at him to hold him back, using all of her amplification powers and hard light, but Sentry gains more and more ground until he's right on her. We see a crack of thunder, and Songbird tries something new. She amplifies the loud sound of the crack of thunder. Sound waves slam into Sentry, and the sand behind him explodes into the air. In several places, we can see the sound waves worked into the sand like a Zen garden for a neat visual. So for those who don't know, when sound waves hit particles of sand, they actually like form the shape of waves. It's really cool, and for a visual for this, it would look like sick, like to really show you the power of her abilities. This is an amplified sound wave unlike anything Songbird's ever made, louder than anything she's ever made. As the sound waves wash over Sentry, we see blood running from his eyes, nose, and mouth. Blood pours from his ears, and he screams. He falls to his knees holding his ears and sits like that for a few moments. As Songbird struggles to her own feet, she was thrown back by the power of the sound wave. She thinks she's won. He's defeated. There's so much blood, but then Sentry looks up. His face is filled with more rage than ever. Songbird actually hurt him, but it wasn't enough. Sentry begins to approach her. Now she's got nowhere to run. She screams again and again, but just like before, it doesn't work. Sentry keeps moving forward as the sound waves wash over him. He doesn't even react anymore. She slams a fist of hard light into his face. He doesn't even flinch. He's so close now. Songbird screams one more time, and he reaches out and grabs her arm. She tries to pull it free, but she can't. Sentry snaps the bone. It's so easy for him. We see the bone stick out of her arm as blood sprays. Songbird screams, but this time she can't amplify it. The pain is too much. She tries to form something out of hard light, but Sentry punches her hard in the stomach. She begins to cough up blood. He pulls her by her broken arm and throws her. She crumples to the ground 30 feet away. We can see that her legs are broken by the impact. She barely breathes, and blood runs from her nose and her mouth. Songbird lays on the ground broken. We see Sentry float into the air above Songbird. The rain drenching his hair, lightning striking in the background. We see the lasers launch from his eyes to finish the kill. The camera flies across the beach to where Speed Demon is. He looks up and sees what's happening. Speed Demon runs. Time slows as his feet pound against the sand. The rain seems suspended midair. The lasers slowly leave Sentry's eyes and approach Songbird. He's too slow. Speed Demon isn't going to make it. As his feet pound into the sand, the kernels of sand fly up and suspend in the air behind him. He says, "Faster." He runs faster and faster, forcing himself harder than he ever has before. In the distance, we see lightning strike again. It's slowed down, slowly climbing across the sky like a creeping vine. In the background, as Speed Demon runs, the lasers are growing closer to Songbird. He isn't gonna make it. Speed Demon says, "Faster!" The sound of his voice is muddled and off-kilter. The particles of rain in the air begin to slice his face. He's running so fast that the water tension is cutting him. The lightning bolt reaches its zenith and begins to retract into the background. The laser is almost to its target. He isn't going to make it. Faster! He drives himself forward. He tries again and again, pushing himself faster and faster, faster than he's ever been. Speed Demon moves so fast that time almost seems to stop around him. The lasers move only tiny, tiny fractals of amounts. The rain has sliced Speed Demon's face to ribbons, but he doesn't stop. He throws himself towards Songbird, pushing her out of the way at supersonic speed just as the lasers are about to hit. Instead of hitting Songbird, they rip through his left foot. He trips and falls, rolling about 10 feet until he stops in the sand. We see blood running from the burned wound on his leg. He tries to get up on his feet, but falls over. He's crippled. Sentry is momentarily confused, then he smiles. "You almost traded your life for hers. Noble, in a way. If I didn't know what you were. Treacherer," Sentry says. Speed Demon says through pain, "You have to listen to me. You have to stop. You don't know what you're doing." Sentry says, "I think I do. Now more than ever. You could have had so much, James, but you threw it away. I won't make the same mistake. The power broker would have given you everything." Sentry floats closer to Speed Demon. Speed Demon tries to crawl away in the sand, but can't. His leg is ripped to shreds. Sentry says, This shouldn't have gone this way. You were meant for more. You could have been great." His eyes begin to glow yellow. Suddenly, Queen glides in front of James. She's barely held off the ground by her broken wings. Her feet land awkwardly in the sand. She snarls at Sentry and holds her arms out, as if to protect Speed Demon. The yellow slowly disappears from Sentry's eyes. Sentry says, "What's this now? I thought I already took care of you." Queen says, "I won't let you hurt him." Speed Demon says, "No, Queen, what are you doing? Stop it." Queen looks back at him and smiles. She says, "Thank you, James, for everything." There's a quiver of fear in her voice. She knows what she's doing. Speed Demon says, "No." Sentry lands on the sand, floating to the ground. We see his feet sink deep into it. Blood from Songbird still runs down his arms and legs. Queen trembles with fear, but she's brave. She holds her ground. Sentry slowly walks towards her. His menacing score picks up with each step, growing in intensity and malice. Queen begins to speak as he gets closer. You followed the broker. She's a monster. She tore me apart, injected me with all her chemicals and serums, and she enjoyed it when I hurt. I could see it in her eyes. We see the silhouette shot of Queen standing tall. We can see her broken wings making the frame almost imbalanced. Sentry steps into the shot, so close to her now. His score continues to grow. His face a mask of anger, rage, and something else. Speed Demon says, "Stop it, Queen. Just run." When she doesn't react, he turns his attention to Sentry. "She didn't hurt the broker. She wasn't there. I was. I did it. I betrayed her. It was me. I pulled the trigger. I shot her." Sentry ignores him. He reaches Queen, and she tries to punch him, but it does nothing. We see James trying to crawl towards Queen. We can see the blood running from his leg into the sand. He yells one last time, "Get away from him, Queen. He only wants me. Don't die for nothing. I'm not worth it." She doesn't listen. She's too focused on Sentry, her fear palpable. She's trembling. Sentry reaches out his hand towards her, his face a mask. We quickly realize he's going to strangle her, just like he did U.S. Agent. The score reaches a fever pitch. It deafens out all sound. We get a shot of his hand slowly moving towards her ominously. We can see the blood coating it. At the last second, it moves aside, not reaching for her throat, but her head. Sentry carefully brushes away a few strands from Queen's face. Carefully brushes away a few strands of hair from Queen's face. Hidden behind it, a small scar is visible, right where it was left when her head was slammed into a box in a shipping container. We see quick images of a flashback. We see the scientists working for the power broker. It's incredible. We pulled the plug on her hours ago. She should have died, but she didn't. She's begun to breathe on her own. Then, to my surprise, she woke up. We see the power broker walk into frame. Is it Project Sentry? Did the dose succeed? Scientist says, no, she has no powers. The only effect of the serum seems to be the coloring of her hair, as it does with all dosed subjects. I think she just got lucky. We could reintroduce her to the brother, tell him we managed to resuscitate her. Broker says, no. I think he's more useful the way he is. He's so full of intense hate, easy to mold. I think we'll do something else with her. We were looking for someone to try Project Antlion on, right? Let's go with that. Scientist says, right. He marks something down on his datapad. We see flashes of them sawing into Queen's back and drilling into her, implanting the wings. Queen is still awake while they do it. They need her neurons firing to make the connection. They slice into her skull and attach the insect communicator to her brain. The camera swings down and we see her scream as they do it. They cut into her, and we see her eyes glance over. They're filled with fear and pain. The scene fades away, and we linger on Sentry's face as the full realization sets in. This is not just a stranger. It's his sister. He says, Arana? Queen's eyes go wide. She says, how do you... We see James trying to crawl towards Queen. We can see the blood is pooling into the sand, even brighter red than it was before. Speedy says, don't hurt her, she's innocent. He sounds almost faint, like he's losing too much blood. Sentry turns to look at Speed Demon. His eyes are panicked. He looks down at Speed Demon's injured leg, and Songbird's broken body where it's lying in the sand. He looks horrified. Again, Speed Demon begs, please, she didn't do it. It was me, all me. Queen pulls his face back towards her. She understands now too. Robert? Sentry says, Arana, I didn't know... How? He's baffled, confused, horrified. She says, it was the broker. They did experiments on me. He looks down at his hands, then back up to her. His eyes linger on the cybernetics forced into her brain. He's finally realized that he's misunderstood everything. He says, oh God, I'm sorry, I didn't know. He takes a step back, then flies away in panic, leaving behind a dust cloud of sand. We see Queen watch him leave. Confused, she turns her attention to Speed Demon. She runs to where he is in the sand and pulls off a piece of her costume. She uses it to stop the bleeding in his leg, letting a few spiders cling off her body to start wrapping it up with web. Queen says, are you okay? Speed Demon says, I'm peachy. What was that? He just left you. Queen says, he was my brother. She must have gotten to him like she got to me. And real fast, I want to point out, I'm not entirely sure before publishing this video if this twist is going to land or not. I worried this one was too obvious, but no one pointed out to me that they had thought of it while watching the script. So let me know, did this twist actually work or was it too obvious? I like to ask audience for feedback because I use these videos as practice. So let me know if that twist was effective or not. I worry I may have been a little too heavy-handing with the foreshadowing and the making it obvious, But if it landed, let me know because that would be awesome. I tried my best with this one. Speed Demon says, "You're his sister? But she's supposed to be dead. She must have lied to him." Snapping back to his senses, Speed Demon remembers where they are. Songbird, we have to help her. We see Queen run over to where Songbird is. Spiders begin to crawl off her costume, and we see them spin up webs like bandages around the wounds. She tries her best to set the bones right and stop the bleeding. We see Dallas stumble over too. Her face is bruised and bloodied. She's holding some kind of distress beacon she pulled from the ship. Speed Demon sees it and says, "Won't Ross find us?" Dallas says, "It's a private channel," trying to hold back the pain in her voice. "To someone who owes me a favor. Don't know how soon he'll be here, though." Speed Demon says, "What do you think? Is she going to be okay?" Dallas says, "She'll live, but she's going to need medical attention soon." Suddenly, the transponder blinks green. Dallas says, "Lucky for us. They're coming sooner than I thought." Speed Demon says, "Already? Just who is this guy?" Dallas says, "He's an old friend from college who happens to be, let's say, powerful now." We see Songbird's eyes open. She looks around confused. "James? Is everyone okay?" Speed Demon says, "Yeah, we're fine. Help is coming. You're gonna be okay." Songbird says, "Oh, that's good, because this really hurts." Speed Demon says, "Yeah, breaking every bone in your body will do that to you." Songbird tries to laugh, but she's too hurt to really get it out, and the camera pulls back. We're going to cut to Sentry's home. We see Kiko, his wife, working on a computer in her living room. A piece of paper gets blown off the table, and she looks up to find the window open. We see Sentry standing in the room. His eyes are red. Kiko says, "Robert, what's wrong?" He lets it all out in a flood. "I was wrong. My sister isn't dead, Kiko. The power broker wasn't who I thought she was." He drops a flash drive onto the table. "I checked for myself. Looked through the government records. The things she did, Kiko. And I helped her every step of the way." Kiko says, "What?" He says, "It was all lies, and I'm a monster." "I don't know what I'm supposed to do." "What are you supposed to do when you realize you've been living a lie your whole life?" Kiko says, "You tell the truth." Sentry pauses for a moment. He says, "I'm a villain. A monster. I killed innocent people. I killed good people." When Kiko asks him, "Do you want to be that man?" Sentry shakes his head. She says, "Then you change. Be the person you want to be. Someone your son can follow. Be the man I know you are. You're so kind and you're loving, and you help people here." He looks towards her and says, "Be better. I just don't know if I can come back from this." Kiko says, "It doesn't matter if you can. You try your best." And this sort of echoes back to Speed Demon and Songbird in the original Thunderbolts movie. I want there to be sort of a consistent theme of people who are maybe bad finding redemption. And Sentry is very bad. He does a lot of bad shit in this script. So we're going to see how that works out for him in the long run. We're going to hear the song Black by Danger Mouse play over a montage. We see Speed Demon learning to walk again. His leg is in a splint, and he's in some kind of strange hospital. As the montage continues, we see Songbird in a wheelchair in the hospital. They're sitting at a table playing Uno with each other. The next thing we see is John Walker's wife and son at a funeral. It's a small gathering, only 5 or 6 people. Not many people came to the funeral of a traitor to the United States. The camera backs up until we see Dallas watching in the distance. She's crying. She holds onto his shield in her hand. The song continues as she talks to herself. "I don't know that I want this, John. It wasn't supposed to be for me. I just can't see the advantage to this." As the montage continues, we see Sentry in the hospital with his wife. He's holding his baby's son in his hands. His face is filled with pride. The baby's little hand grabs his finger and holds it. It looks towards him, and we can see its eyes are yellow. Lastly, We see Queen and Speed Demon approaching a door in the middle of an apartment complex. Speed Demon's on crutches, which I think is a funny visual. Queen reaches out to knock on the door and then stops. The song fades away and she says, "I'm nervous, James. What if he doesn't want to see me?" Speed Demon says, "We talked about this. He's going to love you." "Yeah, I know. It's just like, it's been so long." Speed Demon says, "He's going to love you," reassuring her again. She says, yeah. "Thank you, James." She reaches out and knocks on the door. There's a pause. We see Queen fiddling with her hands. Suddenly, we hear the door unlatch. The door slowly opens, and we see Arana's father from the opening scene. He's much older now, and has a scraggly beard. He says, "What do you want?" He looks down and sees Arana, and his eyes go narrow, then grow wide. He says, "Arana?" She says, "Dad?" He wraps her in a hug and squeezes her tight. He pulls back and says, "Look at you, you're so big, all grown up. I thought you were gone." He's bewildered. He starts to cry, tears of joy. He says, "But you came back." Arana's crying too now. She says, "I missed you so much." The camera pans back as the two of them are hugging. He invites them into the room, and we see Speed Demon and Arana sort of crouch walk into the room as the camera backs up. It passes through the brick wall of the apartment building, and we can see a small cocoon clinging to the wall. A butterfly works its way free and then flies off as the screen turns black. And that's the end of the movie. Really, as I said, this is a movie about Sentry soloing the Thunderbolts, and boy does he solo the Thunderbolts. When I heard Sentry was going to be maybe the villain in the Thunderbolts movie, I was already in the middle of writing this movie, and it became my personal mission to prove why that was a bad idea by writing Sentry into a Thunderbolts story and having him do what he would do. Because in what conceivable universe do the Thunderbolts stand a chance against Sentry? And this team is way more capable of fighting him than the one in the MCU, so I don't know how that's going to go. I look forward to seeing it with bated breath. I do have 3 after-credit scenes. We're going crazy because I wanted to cut one of these, and I couldn't figure out which one to cut, so I just decided, fuck it, this is my thing, we're going to leave them all in. The first after-credit scene, we see Thunderbolt Ross sitting in his backyard, and it's like a nice house, like, you know, he's a wealthy senator, so he's going to have a lot of land. There's a nice garden, and he sits at a small table. He looks out over the garden with a sense of fondness. Half out of focus, we see someone sit at his table. Ross says, "I asked to be left alone." He turns to look, and we see the power broker sitting across from him. She says, "It's a lovely morning, don't you think?" Ross says, "You're supposed to be dead." Power broker says, "Where's the fun in that? I do have a reputation to uphold." Ross slowly reaches his hand into his pocket and presses a panic button. Power broker laughs. "Don't bother. Your guards are incapacitated. I took care of them myself. I couldn't have us interrupted after all." Ross says, "What do you want?" Power broker says, "To cash in the favor you owe me." Ross says, "And just what favor is that?" There's a sense of anger in his voice. Power broker says, "I'm the reason John Walker is finally dead. It was my Sentry who did the deed." "Oh, please, Ross. You think I didn't know the Thunderbolts had broken into your raft? The most secure prison in the world. The most secure prison in the world, and yet a bunch of criminals managed to break in so easily. Not a good look. But I helped you save face. You caught the terrorist you've been after for so long. The feared U.S. agent. For that, I'd say you owe me a large favor." Ross says, "So you came here just to mock me?" His eyes grow red, and he begins to grow larger. His skin turns red, and soon he's giant. He turns into the Red Hulk. Power broker says, "This is a bit of an overreaction." Red Hulk throws one of his giant fists towards her. The power broker simply reaches out a hand and catches it. She manages to hold back the fist with her bare hands. She says, "How interesting. Project Rhinoceros Beetle. I thought this one was a failure, but clearly not. I suppose you're too stubborn to let it fail." She says that in like a mocking tone. Red Hulk says, "Oh." Power broker says, "Please, Ross, you're smarter than that. I'm the power broker. Of course I took some for myself. Project Sentry V2-13 Stable Serum, to be specific. I developed it myself, and I promise you, it's effective." She levitates off the ground, beginning to fly, and her eyes begin to grow bright yellow. Then the glow stops. "I didn't come here to fight. On the contrary, actually. I've come to make an alliance. Red Hulk shrinks down until we see only Ross. He says, what kind of alliance would I want with a criminal like you? She says, we have mutual enemies. You hate the Thunderbolts for embarrassing you publicly. Let's see, twice now. I hate them because they tried to kill me, made my own betray me, tore down my empire. I'm going to see them dead for that. Ross says, so you want to work together to kill the Thunderbolts? Power Broker says, exactly. We have nothing to lose working together and everything to gain. It'll simply make the kill easier. Power Broker holds out a hand. What do you say? Ross snarls, fine. Just until they're dead. Yes. Just until they're dead. I can't imagine it'll be too much work. I've already got the perfect plan to do it. Alright, and then the second after credit scene, we're going to see Dallas sitting in a nice room. There's a knock at the door. Dallas says, come in. A man with a hood enters the room. He says, I'm sorry it took me so long to see you, Dallas. I really am so busy these days. Never a moment of rest, even for an old friend. Dallas says, you don't need to hide yourself behind that hood, you know. She reaches up to pull the hood back, and the man catches her arm, carefully pulling it away. He says, I know, Dallas. This is for me, I suppose. How have you found your accommodations? She says, they're wonderful. I owe you for this, Vic. The man says, don't worry about it. You're a friend. I always said your talents were wasted in the military, though being a vigilante isn't exactly what I had in mind. Dallas says, it's fulfilling work. We help people. If we have to break a few laws to do it, I'd say it's worth it. The man says, then we are aligned in our beliefs even still, Dallas. I have some plans to help the world myself. You and your Thunderbolts are welcome to stay here for as long as you would like. Dallas says, I really appreciate that. I still can't believe you really took your country back. I always thought it was just talk. He says, I rarely ever just talk. It's one of my flaws, I'm afraid. I am too much a man of action. We see a light appear on his arm. He says, oh. See, never a moment of rest. There is a matter I must attend to, but we'll catch up soon, I promise. I have a proposal for your Thunderbolts that I'd like you to consider. With that, the cloaked man walks out of the room, leaving Dallas behind. He looks up, and beneath the cloak, we can see a scarred, burned face. He reaches to his waist and pulls up a metal mask, which he carefully slides on. For the first time, we get a look at Victor Von Doom, Dr. Doom in the flesh. That's the end of the after credit scene. After credit scene 3, we see Ghost. She sits on the floor with her mask off. In front of her, we see an echo. It vibrates and flickers. She tries to speak with it. Ghost says, it's seemingly trying to speak with her, moving its mouth. Ghost says, I can't hear you. The echo frowns. It says something. Suddenly, the echo thinks to write something down and holds up a piece of paper. It flickers, but we can clearly see what it says. Danger. Kang. Ghost says, what is a Kang? The echo holds up a piece of paper again. We can see it says Conqueror. Ghost is trying to puzzle it out. Ghost says, Conqueror. Who does he conquer? The echo holds up its piece of paper once more. Only a single word is on it. Us. Suddenly, the echo vanishes immediately. Ghost says, Kang. The end. So obviously, these are setups for a couple of things. Thunderbolts 3 and my Avengers movie that I've already announced that I'm writing. So I use these after credit scenes to shill what I've got coming forward.
So that was how the cookie crumbles, as they say in France. I'm gonna just keep hanging out here in this place, which you don't have to worry about where I am right now. Seriously, stop bringing it up. Why do you guys keep bringing it up? What's wrong with you? If you want something else to watch right now, here we go. That right there is Ors, the Harry Potter murder mystery thing I wrote. And my dog is breathing into the mic. I'm very, very sorry about that. He's an idiot. He just ran out of the yard 10 seconds ago, and I had to go wrangle him because he's an idiot. If you look over here, you will see the Suicide Squad stuff. If you haven't watched that and you're here for Thunderbolts, you might enjoy that. They're similar. So that's really it. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one. I'm just going to speedrun this.